In my previous life, my stepsister and I fell into the water together. Wei Juan, the heir of the Ningyuan Marquis, saved me, but my stepsister tragically drowned. To repay Wei Juan for saving my life, my father arranged for me to marry him. 5 years into our marriage, Wei Juan inherited the title. But he suddenly changed his affectionate demeanor. He falsely accused my father of colluding with enemy forces, leading to the execution of my entire Jiang family. I was also killed by Wei Juan, who slit my throat. Only in my dying moments did I hear him confess that the one he truly loved was my stepsister. If I hadn't deliberately fallen into the water that day and disrupted the plan, he would have long since eloped with my stepsister. Now that my stepsister is dead, he wants our entire family to accompany her in death. Little does he know, I was framed into falling into the water that day and had no idea about his plan with my stepsister. Returning to the day of the fall, I heard a startled cry and decisively tripped the Marquis of Ningyuan's wife into the pond, this time without me. Let's see if Wei Juan saves his stepsister or his old mother first. When the Jiang family was exterminated, my father was still rejoicing that as a married daughter, I didn't have to die with them. Little did he know, since Wei Juan wanted the complete downfall of the Jiang family, how could he possibly spare me? As the long sword slit my throat, I asked Wei Juan unwillingly why. He and I have been married for many years, always deeply affectionate. Why would he suddenly turn against me and the Jiang family without reason, determined to destroy us? Wei Juan held a long sword, staring coldly at me, and finally spoke before I drew my last breath. Do you still remember Jiang Wn? Jiang Wn was my half-sister, the third young lady of the Jiang family. When she was 8 years old, concubine Zhao died in childbirth along with her unborn son. And her mother had her brought to live by her side, treating her with the same care and provisions as me. Later, when the Chang'e Earl's estate built a new garden, the old madam hosted a banquet and invited guests. My mother took me and my half-sister along, unexpectedly, while strolling through the garden. Both my half-sister and I fell into the water. The pond water was icy cold, and there were no boats or oars prepared in the garden. The gathered women could only stomp their feet in anxiety. And my mother fainted from distress. It was Wei Juan, who had accompanied the lady of Ningyuan Marquis to the banquet, who overcame all difficulties, jumped into the pond, and rescued me. Afterwards, he still wanted to save his sister, but his strength was exhausted, and he could only watch helplessly as she sank to the bottom of the pond, cut off from the world. By the time father received the news, his concubine-born sister had already drowned. He wept bitterly, gave her a proper burial, and then took me and mother to Ningyuan Marquis' residence. At that time, father believed that Wei Juan had saved my life, a debt difficult to repay. Initially, he considered that since the Wei family's hereditary title had been downgraded over generations and was now at its weakest, it might be fitting to secure Wei Juan a good official position in the court. Additionally, he planned for me to acknowledge the Marchioness of Ningyuan as my adoptive mother. Thinking these gestures could settle the debt between our families, little did I know that upon arriving at the Marquis of Ningyuan's residence, the Marchioness couldn't stop expressing her fondness for me, repeatedly mentioning that Wei Juan was still unmarried. Seeing this, my father simply arranged the marriage between Wei Juan and me. They say noble families marry their daughters upward, while humble ones marry theirs downward. Our Jiang family ancestors rose through military achievements. Having rendered meritorious service to the founding emperor, my grandfather ascended to the position of Grand Tutor and was personally enfeoffed as Duke of Qi by the late emperor. He passed away due to illness, and the late emperor posthumously honored him as the Prince of Luling, granting him burial in the imperial mausoleum and a place in the imperial ancestral temple, making him the foremost founding hero by my father's generation. The hereditary title was inherited by virtue of ancestral merit, and it was designated to be passed down perpetually. Had there been no unforeseen circumstances, it would have been as difficult as ascending to heaven for the Marquis of Ningyuan, whose hereditary rank was diminishing, to seek marriage ties with our Duke of Qi's household. Because of this, after I married into the Wei family, Wei Juan quickly rose 3 ranks in the court with the support of my father and brothers. advancing smoothly and rapidly in his career. Moreover, having gained the trust of His Majesty the Emperor, he regained the title of Marquis of Ningyuan, enjoying unparalleled glory. My mother once sighed in front of me, saying outright that this marriage was indeed a good match. My husband was ambitious. My mother-in-law adored me, and my life would surely be smooth and carefree. Little did I expect that while her words still echoed in my ears, Wei Juan submitted a memorial accusing our Jiang family of treason and colluding with the enemy, which was presented before the emperor. With both witnesses and material evidence in hand, His Majesty, in his fury, issued an imperial decree ordering the execution of the entire Jiang family. Perhaps even when my parents and siblings died, they didn't understand what truly happened. With bitter hatred, I swallowed my last breath. If there is an afterlife, I swear Wei Juan shall die a wretched death. 2. Miss, wake up quickly. Madam is waiting for you up front to visit the Chang'e Earl's garden. My heart still brimming with resentment, I thought I had died with everlasting regret, when suddenly I heard a familiar voice. Third Miss is already waiting outside. Please get up and dress quickly, Miss. Third Miss. Wei Juan only has one elder sister and no younger sister in the family. Our Jiang family does have a third miss. But didn't she drown? So where did this third miss come from? I struggled to open my eyes, only to see Xiangzhu, the maid who used to serve me, standing by my bed, calling out to me incessantly. But wasn't this girl supposed to have perished with my mother when the Jiang family was executed? How could she be here? Could it be that after my death, I've reunited with my mother and the others? A flood of thoughts rushed into my mind like tangled threads, leaving me dizzy and confused. Xiangzhu. Where are we, miss? Are you still half asleep? Isn't this madam's room? Last night you insisted on sleeping with madam, refusing to go back to your own room no matter what. Madam had no choice but to let you stay in the side chamber. Why does this feel so familiar? I rub my forehead, the warmth and texture of my hand feel real. Unlike, a sudden thought flashes through my mind. Before I can dwell on it, I hastily push Xiangzhu aside and rush to the bedside, lifting the curtain draped over the mirror. The reflection in the mirror had delicate features and a youthful face. It was exactly how I looked before I was married. Could it be that heaven heard my prayers and truly granted me rebirth, allowing me to return to this life? This is truly a joyous occasion. Father and mother are still here. My brother hasn't met misfortune, and I haven't yet been wed. Everything is at its best. This time, I swear I won't have anything to do with the Wei family again. Not only that, but I'll make sure the Wei family suffers the same fate our Jiang family endured in our past life. Only then can I appease the spirits of my Jiang family ancestors. Xiangzhu, quickly help me change clothes. I need to see mother. I happily dressed myself but hadn't even had the chance to go see mother when my third sister, Jiang Wn, walked in. Looking at me, she said, "Second sister, you're taking forever. I've been waiting for you for ages." Only then did I remember Jiang Wn had also played a part in the massacre of our Jiang family. Watching her come in, I couldn't help but take a closer look at her. In the past, my mother feared that she might harbor concerns due to her biological mother's early death, so she treated her and me equally. In fact, considering she was younger than me, mother even asked me to give in to her more often. Whatever I had, Jiang Wn had too. Even things I didn't have. If Jiang Wn wanted them, mother would have someone buy them for her. For example, today, mother prepared identical soft blue tops and apricot yellow skirts for both Jiang Wn and me. I wore mine, but Jiang Wn had someone make her a new outfit, a pink satin skirt embroidered with peony patterns, gold-printed floral borders, and delicate silk trimmings radiant as a flower in March. Recalling Wei Juan's words from my past life, I suspect Jiang Wn had already arranged to meet him at this time, which explains why she dressed so elaborately. Yet, I wore blue, and Jiang Wn wore red. Even in the water, there should have been no confusion. So how did Wei Juan end up rescuing me instead? Suppressing my bewilderment, I met Jiang Wan's eager gaze and asked her once more, "Third sister, you seem in such a hurry. Is there something you can't wait to do?" Jiang Wn was momentarily stunned by my words, then blinked her eyes and shook her head with feigned innocence. "No, it's just that mother has already gone ahead to wait. If we're any later, she'll start to worry." She still wanted to keep it from me, to keep it from the Jiang family. Little did she know, given the exalted status of our Duke of Qis household, even if she wasn't born of the principal wife, as long as the Duke of Qis plaque still hung above our door, marrying into the Wei family wouldn't be difficult for her, unless there was a problem on the Wei family's side. Wei Juan was still a commoner without official rank, and the ones calling the shots at home were the Marquis of Ningyuan and his wife. His affection for Jiang Wn must have been discussed with his family. If it were a respectable family, they wouldn't care about her being born from a concubine. They'd only consider our Jiang family's status and traditions, and would eagerly agree to this marriage. It must be that the Ningyuan Marquisate looked down on Jiang Wn for being born from a concubine and refused to consent. Since they disagreed, our Duke of Qis household naturally wouldn't force our daughter into a marriage beneath her station. That's why Wei Juan and Jiang Wn resorted to such desperate measures. I had intended to stop my mother, just to let Wei Juan and Jiang Wn waste their efforts, but when the moment came, I changed my mind. If I stopped them this time, who knows what foolish ideas Wei Juan and Jiang Wn might come up with next, or what trouble they might cause. It might be better to go along with their plan and turn their scheme to my advantage. So, I took Jiang Wan's hand and went with her to the front hall. Mother was there instructing servants to prepare congratulatory gifts, with fine silks and dazzling jewels. No longer as destitute and wretched as in the past life, my eyes reddened, and tears nearly fell. Unaware of the truth, Mother scolded me. "I told you to sleep early last night, but you refused. Look at you now, unable to get up. It's fine to behave like this at home, but when you marry into another family in the future, can you still sleep till the sun is high?" Her words made me laugh. I stepped forward, wrapped my arms around hers, and affectionately nuzzled against her, coquettishly saying, "Then I'll never marry and stay home to take care of you and father. You wish. When girls grow up, how can they not marry?" she retorted. Mother smiled and pinched my nose, still treating me like a child. "Not only will you marry, but even our Wanwan, once she comes of age, will marry too. When you sisters leave home, it will be hard for mother to see you again." Jiang Wn didn't speak, only pursed her lips in a faint smile. "It seems she's made up her mind to be with Wei Juan." I silently helped my mother into the carriage, and Jiang Wn also quietly followed behind me to board and take her seat. She seemed preoccupied, restless the entire way. Upon arriving at Chung Yibo's residence, Jiang Wan's expression grew even more visibly uneasy. She kept scanning the crowd of coming and going guests, as if waiting for someone. Of course, I knew who she was waiting for and what she intended to do next. So, just as in my past life, I accompanied my mother inside while letting my gaze wander through the crowd. In my previous life, when Jiang Wn fell into the water, I wasn't with her. I heard a scream, and before I could turn around, someone pushed me from behind, causing me to fall into the water as well. At the moment of falling, I only remember that the person who pushed me wore a bracelet woven with gold threads, but I recall nothing else. Now that I've been reborn, I naturally must uncover the culprit who pushed me into the water. 3. The Countess of Chang'e was cheerful and sociable, interacting with many people in her daily life. Today's garden party alone seemed to have invited nearly all the noble families of the capital. Every lady attending with an invitation was adorned in gold and silver, making it quite difficult to identify who was wearing the intricate gold bracelet. Dazzled by the crowd, I unexpectedly found myself nearing the poolside. Instinctively, I stopped in my tracks to avoid repeating the misfortune of my past life. However, just as I paused, someone from behind caught up and called out, "Isn't that Lady Jiang, the second daughter of the Duke of Qis household? It's been a while. How have you been, Lady Jiang?" Following the voice, I turned to see Wei Siwei, Wei Juan's twin sister, gracefully approaching with her mother, the Marchioness of Ningyuan. Arm in arm, a pair of gold filigree bracelets on her wrist caught the sunlight, gleaming so brightly they were almost blinding. I was startled, never imagining that it was she who had pushed me into the water in my past life, And yet, after entering the household, I had treated her like my own sister, generously giving her anything from my family's gifts that caught her eye. So, it turns out I had been nurturing a viper in my bosom, seeing my silence. Wei Siwei must have thought I hadn't recognized her, so she smiled and added, "We met once before at the Gaidu Marquis's residence, have you forgotten?" Second miss. Last year I had already reached the age of 15, the marriageable age, and making friends was not as carefree as in childhood. Therefore, when going out ordinarily, I mostly stayed by my mother's side, speaking little, moving little, and looking little. To avoid unnecessary trouble, how could I still remember that brief encounter with her? Moreover, in my previous life, my mother and I were honored guests, accompanied by the Countess of Changi. I hadn't exchanged many words with Wei Siwei, nor was there any enmity between us. Without any reason, why would she push me into the water? I pondered for a moment in my heart, and suddenly a bold guess came to me. Since Wei Juan had secretly pledged his life to Jiang Wan, the Ningyuan Marquis's household would naturally disapprove and would inevitably keep a close watch on Wei Juan's every move to prevent him and Jiang Wan from causing further trouble. Today's garden party was attended not by the Marquis of Ningyuan himself, but by his wife, who brought Wei Juan along. Clearly, she was already aware of Wei Juan and Jiang Wan's intentions, though she couldn't openly separate Wei Juan and Jiang Wan. She seized the opportunity to secretly arrange another engagement for Wei Juan during the garden party, one that would satisfy the entire Ningyuan Marquis's household, and I was the one she had chosen. That's why they clung closely behind my mother and me, pushing me into the water the moment my stepsister fell in. I recall someone shouting from the shore when I fell in, "The Jiang family's daughter has fallen into the water." The one in blue is the Jiang family's daughter. She deliberately omitted that I was the second daughter of the Jiang family, creating confusion to mislead Wei Juan into rescuing me. As for whether Jiang Wan lived or died, they didn't care. After all, Wei Juan had already become the Jiang family's savior, and no one would blame him for not saving Jiang Wan. Later, it was precisely because of the marriage between Wei Juan and me that the Wei family miraculously revived overnight. And Wei Siwei also fulfilled her wish by marrying into a prestigious family. They played their cards well, but at the cost of destroying our Duke Chi's household. I gave Wei Siwei a cold glance, cutting short her attempt to act affectionate with me. "Forgive my poor eyesight, but I don't recognize you." Wei Siwei was left speechless, probably never expecting that the outwardly gentle second Miss Jiang would so ruthlessly humiliate her in public. She bit her lip in a mix of embarrassment and annoyance, about to say something when Lady Ningyuan spoke first. "Noble ladies are often forgetful. It's nothing if you don't recognize us. With frequent visits in the future, you'll naturally become familiar." As she spoke, she pulled Wei Siwei forward and introduced her to me. "This is our family's young lady, Siwei. In terms of age, she's only 2 years older than you and is also waiting to be betrothed. If you find yourself idle at home, you can visit our Ningyuan Marquisate to chat with your elder sister Siwei." I remained silent. Lady Ningyuan was notoriously shrewd. During the years I served as her daughter-in-law, she coaxed me into using my dowry to cover household expenses more times than I could count. Not a single word she spoke was without purpose. Every phrase carried calculation. How could an ordinary person ever be a match for her? Therefore, I could only remain calm to counter their moves. I spoke little. And since the Marquis of Ningyuan's wife couldn't engage me in conversation, she naturally stopped trying. She simply had Wei Siwei accompany me for some fun. I came here for urgent matters and had no time to idle around with others. Seeing Jiang Wan drifting further away from my mother and me, walking closer to the pond with a few noble ladies, I hurried to catch up with my mother. The Marquis of Ningyuan's wife and Wei Siwei also noticed Jiang Wan, seeing me walk away. They quickly followed behind, pushing me toward the pond's edge. Having learned of their intentions, I naturally guarded against Wei Siwei attempting to harm me again. Suddenly, a loud splash echoed nearby, followed by startled cries. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Wei Siwei reaching out, and without hesitation, I dodged to the side. At the same time, I tripped Lady Ningyuanhu with my foot, causing her to plunge headfirst into the pond, just as I had in my past life. In an instant, 2 noble women had fallen into the water, and chaos erupted on the shore. Someone shouted, "Someone's fallen into the water." Someone shouted, "Come quickly, come quickly." Wei Siwei saw that I hadn't fallen in but had pushed her mother instead, turning pale with fright and becoming speechless. My mother also heard the commotion and hurried over with Lady Changi. Seeing me standing alone by the shore, she immediately grabbed me and asked, "Where's your third sister? Where's Wana?" Just as I was about to point it out to my mother, sudden chaos erupted from the opposite shore. Wei Juan rushed frantically from the front courtyard, took off his robe, and without hesitation jumped into the water. Seeing this, I quickly shouted for help. "It's third sister who fell into the water. Hurry and save my third sister. The one in red is the third young lady of our Duke of Chi's household. Save her, and the Duke's household will surely reward you handsomely." Hearing this, Wei Siwei finally snapped out of her daze and also began calling for help from the shore. Second brother, hurry and save mother. Mother has fallen into the water." Her voice was shrill, much louder than mine. Moreover, she hadn't even glanced across the water yet knew it was Wei Juan who had jumped in, proving that she and the Marchioness of Ningyuan had long been aware of Wei Juan and Jiang Wan's scheme. This only strengthened my resolve to make life difficult for both mother and daughter. She shouted loudly, and I shouted back even louder, until Wei Juan was left standing helplessly in the middle of the water, trapped between Jiang Wan and the Marquis of Ningyuan's wife, unsure whom to save first. He turned his head, glancing once at the delicate crimson figure struggling on his left, then at the dark green form flailing wildly on his right. After much deliberation, he finally swam toward the Marquis of Ningyuan's wife. Between his lover and his mother, he decisively chose his mother. Later, even though he failed to save Jiang Wan, people would still praise him for his noble character, unwavering loyalty, and utmost filial piety whenever the incident was mentioned. Only Jiang Wan, having lived 2 lives, was the one abandoned in both. I wonder if my foolish sister will learn her lesson after this incident. Among everyone, only mother truly cared for Jiang Wan, hearing she had fallen into the water. She was frantic and distraught, repeatedly calling for help and rushing to save her herself. But this was the Changi Earl's residence, not our Duke Chi's mansion, who would heed her commands here. Fortunately, I had been cautious when I arrived and had already scouted around the garden for something handy. Seizing an unnoticed moment, I hid a bamboo pole by the rockery near the shore. Seeing Wei Juan make his choice, I hurried over, grabbed the bamboo pole, and handed it to Jiang Wan. "Third sister, grab hold quickly, I'll pull you up." The pond water was icy, and Jiang Wan had been soaking in it so long her limbs were nearly frozen stiff. She had been dreaming of Wei Juan coming to her rescue, but now, watching him turn away to save the Marquis of Ningyuan's wife instead, she floated lifelessly in the water, motionless as a corpse. Anger surged within me, and I poked her with a bamboo pole. "Jiang Wan, if you don't grab hold now, you're going to die. Hurry up and come here." Startled by my poke, Jiang Wan finally snapped out of it and quickly grasped the pole with all her strength. Seeing this, the noble ladies on the shore rushed forward to help me pull Jiang Wan out. Once ashore, Jiang Wan vomited water for quite a while. She seemed caught between tears and laughter, her head hanging low, lost in thoughts unknown. On the contrary, the noble ladies on the shore clapped their hands in approval. Each believing they had collectively performed a great act of kindness today. They even considerately comforted Jiang Wan. They say those who survive great calamities are destined for great fortune. Don't be afraid, Sister Wan, there must be great blessings awaiting you. The 2 young ladies from the Changi Count's residence kindly sent their maids back to fetch clothes belonging to themselves and the Countess of Changi for Jiang Wan and the Marchioness of Ningyuan to change into. Jiang Wan remained silent and followed the maids to change her clothes. While I thanked the noble sisters who had helped on her behalf, mother also breathed a sigh of relief. Once Jiang Wan had finished freshening up, she took both our hands and bid farewell to the Countess of Changi. stating outright that Jiang Wn must have been frightened by the fall into the water. She insisted that upon returning home, they would not only summon a physician but also find a Taoist priestess to examine her. To tell the truth, the Countess of Chang'e was also terrified. In my past life, Jiang Wn and I fell into the water together. Though I was rescued, Jiang Wn died in their family garden. The Chang'e Count's household was both afraid of Jiang Wan's ghost and worried that our Duke Chi's residents would later blame them. Trembling with fear, they dared not associate with our Duke Chi's residents from then on, causing my mother and me to miss out on much news from noble families for no reason. This time, those who fell into the water were Jiang Wn and the Marchioness of Ningyuan. Although the Ningyuan Marquisate was not as wealthy as before, it was still a titled household after all. If the Marchioness of Ningyuan were to truly meet with misfortune at the Chang'e Count's residence, the Chang'e Count's title might well be revoked before his heir could inherit it. If Jiang Wn were to meet with disaster, she would retrace the path of her previous life, severing all ties between the Chang'e Count's residence and the Duke of Chi's household. Fortunately, apart from swallowing a few mouthfuls of pond water, both Jiang Wn and the Marchioness of Ningyuan emerged largely unscathed. The Countess of Chang'e, having endured a false alarm, saw us off while wiping away her sweat, passing by the resting chamber of the Marquis of Ningyuan's wife. Even through the window, one could sense her and Wei Siwei's resentful gazes. I lowered my head and saw Jiang Wn still peering incessantly into the room, as if waiting for Wei Juan to come out and give her an explanation. It seems the pond water failed to clear her mind but instead muddled her even further. However, there's one thing that truly puzzles me. Jiang Wan has been raised by my mother's side since she was 8 years old, with every word and action guided by mother's teachings, and whenever she went out, she was accompanied by nursemaids and maids. Logically, she shouldn't have engaged in any improper behavior with Wei Juan. So when exactly did they become entangled? After much deliberation, I finally summoned Xiongzhu. The Duke of Chi's residence was vast with numerous gatekeepers and hundreds of servants. Even though my mother managed the household with strict discipline, oversights were inevitable. Who knows how many absurd things those lowly servants had done behind their masters' backs. I never understood the hardships of managing a household until I married into the Wei family and was tricked by the Marchioness of Ningyuan into taking charge. Only then did I realize how detestable cunning servants could be. 1 grain of rice feeds 100 kinds of people. Even a noble lady like Jiang Wn could commit the disgraceful act of secretly pledging herself to someone, let alone household servants. Sure enough, when I asked Xiongzhu about it, he stammered for a long time before finally saying, "If we're talking about unspeakable matters in the household, there are indeed 2 or 3. The young servants attending second master secretly arranged a mistress for him behind second mistress's back, and now they're keeping her under a pretext at our estate outside the city. It was only when one of the servants got drunk and let it slip that second mistress's maid accidentally found out, causing quite a stir. Somehow it was hushed up, and our Duke and Madam never heard about it. Then there's another matter. Shoa, the senior maid serving third mistress, is reaching the age to be released from service. I heard her family has arranged a marriage for her, but Shoa refuses. Third mistress came to plead with our madam, asking her to find a suitable young man among the stewardesses' families to marry Shoa off. Second uncle didn't inherit the title and holds a sinecure position at court, usually spending his days amusing himself with cats and dogs, living quite carefree. It's just that second aunt has a domineering personality, which caused frequent conflicts between the couple. But with 4 children already, second uncle still dared to fool around outside, utterly shameless. No wonder he didn't dare bring it up in front of father. Third aunt, on the other hand, has a gentle temperament, but being too mild-mannered also has its drawbacks. She can't distinguish right from wrong and lets those beneath her deceive her. I've seen that Shoa before, flirtatious and overly affected, with nothing but a sweet-talking mouth to her name. It's not that she looked down on the marriage proposal arranged by the family. She wanted to become third aunt's son's concubine instead, yet third aunt couldn't even see through that. These are matters concerning the 2 households to the west. Let's not dwell on them for now. I'm only asking you, isn't there any unsavory business in our own quarters, for instance, among father's attendants, mother's maids, or those serving third sister? Are there things I'm unaware of? Well, there are some, but they're all trivial matters. Xiangzhu hesitated to speak further. I gave her a calm glance. You must understand that many major troubles begin with minor issues. 1,000-mile dike can collapse because of an ant's nest. If we want lasting prosperity, we must nip problems in the bud. Go ahead and tell me whether the matters are big or small. I'll decide for myself. Yes, Xiangzhu replied before continuing. The Duke is discerning in his use of people. So there's been no trouble from his attendants. The Duchess is kind and generous, but her maids are exceptionally sharp. No one dares to play tricks there. It's only in the households of the eldest young master, third sister, and ours that issues arise. Everyone takes advantage of having backing, and since the masters and young ladies are so good-natured, they overlook minor faults, which leads to trouble. The eldest young master's attendants lend money at usury outside, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's always improper. Third sister is young, but her maids are older, and with so many steward sons in the estate, there's inevitably some mischief behind the scenes. As for our quarters, forgive me for saying so, but you, young lady, ought to assert your authority more. Otherwise, today someone comes asking for favors, tomorrow another comes seeking handouts. What do they take our place for? I'll have the elder brother discipline his own servant later. 2 of Jiang Wan's senior maids are nearly 20 years old. If they're not released soon, they'll become old maids. It's understandable that they want to plan for themselves and secure a good marriage, but dragging Jiang Wen into her first love and even having her engage in an illicit affair with Wei Juan, that's their fault. They should be dismissed by mother. As for the people in my quarters, apart from my 2 wet nurses, no one else dares to come asking for things or seeking favors. In the past, out of gratitude for the nursemaids' nurturing care, I often turned a blind eye to their occasional misconduct, letting them get away with things. However, recalling how Wei Juan in my previous life could easily hide incriminating evidence in the Duke of Qi's residence to falsely accuse the Jiang family of treason, there must have been insiders assisting him. This left me no choice but to steel my heart and help mother thoroughly reorganize the household. 5. Since I had already reached the age of 15, managing household affairs was a skill I ought to learn. Thus, when I approached mother to ask for some responsibilities, she didn't think much of it. Instead, she said with relief, I've long hoped for someone to lend me a hand in managing household duties, sparing me from excessive exhaustion. Unfortunately, back then, your second aunt was at odds with your second uncle, and third aunt was too soft-spoken to command the servants. Only concubine Zhao could offer some help, but she passed away suddenly, recently. I've been considering whether to let you and Wanna take on some tasks, but I hesitated, worried you were too young to discipline the servants and wanting you to enjoy a carefree life at home for a couple more years. Now that you've taken the initiative, it's even better. She then summoned the matrons and stewardesses who usually assisted her and assigned them to me. I haven't been feeling well these past few days. If there's anything urgent recently, go and report to the second young miss. Whatever she instructs you to do, you must follow her orders precisely. Should I find out you've performed poorly or disobeyed her, regardless of any past affections, I will surely dismiss you from this household. Have I made myself clear? The matrons and stewardesses answered in unison, and then mother assigned 2 senior maidservants to me. These 2 have been personally trained by me and have served by my side the longest. If there's anything you're unsure about when I'm not at home, you may consult them. Yes, I bowed respectfully to acknowledge the instructions, then led the procession of matrons, stewardesses, and maidservants out of the main courtyard. Immediately, I summoned all the supervising matrons and stewardesses from various inner and outer chambers to appear before me. Keep those who are competent and assign idle tasks to the incompetent, sending them to the outer gate. Those who were usually lazy, deceitful, gambled, or drank were all punished. Those who could be dismissed were expelled outright, while those who couldn't were taken home by their families for proper discipline. Then, there was Jiang Wan's situation. I ordered her room to be moved closer, placing her in the same courtyard as me. I also replaced her 2 senior maids with 2 junior ones. My mother hadn't said anything about my sweeping changes, but Jiang Wan was the first to take offense and came to vent her anger at me. Sister is now assisting mother in managing the household, truly impressive, even meddling with the people in my room. Sister dismissed my senior maid and left me with only 2 inexperienced little maids. How am I supposed to manage them? Is sister using me as an excuse to deliberately show off her authority to everyone in the household? I smiled. Those 2 maids of yours were getting older, and their parents came to the estate several times begging to redeem them for marriage arrangements. I replaced them with 2 younger maids who can learn from the senior maids now and be of use later. Besides, we are both young ladies who will leave home someday. We don't have many years left here. I thought it would be nice to spend more time talking and staying together with you, wouldn't it? If you find the little maids inconvenient, the senior maids in my room haven't reached marriageable age yet. Feel free to summon any of them. Jiang Wan had nothing to say in response. Living deep within the Duke's residence, she actually managed to converse with an unrelated man, arrange a meeting at the Earl of Chang'e's estate to rescue him from drowning, and pledge their lives together. If anyone says her maids weren't assisting from the sidelines, I wouldn't believe a word of it. Such treacherous individuals are nothing but trouble. No matter which household they're in, she still wants to keep him by her side, likely because her ties with Wei Juan aren't completely severed. How can I allow her to meet Wei Juan again and invite a wolf into our home? Sister, you're already of marriageable age, and your betrothal will soon be arranged. Strictly speaking, it shouldn't be me, your unmarried elder sister, telling you these things. But if I don't speak up, I fear you might remain unaware. Although we weren't born from the same mother, we were both raised by our mother's side, just like our eldest brother. When we step outside, outsiders refer to us equally as the children of the Duke. There's no distinction. When it comes to marriage, father and mother will surely make careful arrangements for you. Until then, wouldn't it be wonderful for us to live together and learn household management side by side? Jiang Wan seemed lost in thought. After a moment, just when I thought she had come to understand, she said, "How could second sister and I be the same? Second sister is mother's own child. While I was born of a concubine, we were destined to be worlds apart from birth. Second sister doesn't need to seek out marriage proposals, they come rushing to her doorstep. And me, a mere concubine-born girl, even if father and mother exhaust their efforts planning for me, others will still see me as inferior to the legitimate children. I can only rely on myself to secure a good match." I exhausted all my words, yet she only cared about the opinions of the Ningyuan Marquis's household. Who knows what kind of bewitching potion Wei Juan fed her, making her willing to sacrifice her virtue just to marry him? No, Jiang Wan is confused. But I can't follow her into confusion. Back in my room, I summoned Xiongzhu. Tell the 2 maids assigned to 3rd Mrs. room carefully, no matter whom she meets or what she does. They must record everything and report to me. Also, call the maids who used to serve 3rd Miss. I have questions for them. Xiongzhu agreed promptly but then asked curiously, "Has something happened in 3rd Mrs. room?" I couldn't bring myself to tell Xiongzhu, nor did I know how to broach the subject with mother and father. Without any evidence, it would seem as though I'm deliberately trying to slander Jiang Wan. With so many eyes and ears in the household, if even a hint of this gets out, none of the Jiang family's daughters will be able to hold their heads up. Even mother would lose face. After all, Jiang Wan was raised under her name, practically brought up by her own hands. Now that Jiang Wan has been secretly meeting with an outsider, wouldn't that imply mother failed in her upbringing? This matter shouldn't be spread around. Lately, I've been managing the household eldest brother and I can handle it, but 3rd sister is still young and easily influenced. She needs extra supervision. Xiongzhu seemed to understand yet not quite, but she was efficient and meticulous in her work. Whatever I tasked her with, she never failed to accomplish. She quietly led Jiang Wan's senior maids into the room, while I instructed the matrons to seal off the courtyard, preventing anyone from entering. I also summoned the 2 maids my mother had given me to observe. The senior maids had heard about me assisting my mother in managing household affairs. When I called for them, they likely assumed it was to assign them some favorable task, Little did they expect that as soon as they stepped inside, I would order them to kneel. Normally, I see you all as proper and dutiful. Who would have thought you'd stoop to such despicable acts behind my back? Speak. What have you been helping third young lady with? The senior maids exchanged glances, their expressions betraying alarm, yet clinging to hope. They stiffened their lips and defended themselves when I confronted them directly. We are all servants attending to the third young miss, naturally assisting her with dressing, washing, and cleaning her quarters. We don't understand what the second young miss means by such questions. As maids grow older, their thoughts become more complicated, daring to deceive their superiors at such a critical moment. I signaled Xiangzhu to fetch their contracts. Our Duke Chi's household is benevolent and does not engage in violent acts, but we cannot tolerate deceit. If you refuse to confess truthfully, the household can no longer keep you. We'll have to send you elsewhere. As for where that might be, I didn't specify, but they knew it certainly wouldn't be a good place, nor would they ever encounter masters as kind-tempered as ours again. The senior maids finally began to feel a bit frightened, exchanging hesitant glances among themselves. None wanted to speak first, yet none dared remain silent. I waved my hand, instructing Xiangzhu to take 2 maids to the adjacent room first, leaving only Chosha behind. Speak one by one. If you do well, I'll reward you accordingly, and I won't breathe a word of it to third sister. Chosha was the maid attending to third sister's quarters. Hearing this, she quickly kowtowed and pleaded desperately. Second miss, spare me, none of this has anything to do with me. Ever since third miss visited the guide Marquis's residence and met their young lady that one time, she's been like a different person. She insists we fetch her novels bought from outside by the pages, reads them all night long, and can't eat or sleep without them. What kind of novels could be so bewitching? I don't know either. I just occasionally heard third miss muttering while reading her book something about distinctions between legitimate and illegitimate children. How marriage is entirely up to oneself to strive for, or about talented scholars and beauties, how fate brings us together yet keeps us apart. There was so much of it, I can't remember everything. No wonder third sister was talking about legitimate and illegitimate births last time, and how vastly different they are. It turns out she got all that from this book. Where is the book now? After third miss finished reading it, she put it in the bedside cabinet. I instructed Xiangzhu to find the maid sent to third sister's place and secretly bring me the book when third sister wasn't paying attention. Then I called Chunhua over and questioned her. Tell me, how did third young lady become acquainted with Marquis Ningyuan's heir? Wei, if you lie, be prepared to be sold off. Chunhua didn't know what Chosha had already told me earlier. Frightened by my threat, she spilled everything like beans pouring out of a bamboo tube. It was during the Lantern Festival on the 15th day of the first month. Our young lady dropped her handkerchief, and it was picked up by the heir. Later, when the heir returned it, the young lady went to retrieve it herself, and that's how they met. Dongrong also added. After that, the young lady and the heir often exchanged letters in secret. The heir told her he wanted to marry her and asked her to wait. But his family never agreed. Unable to wait any longer, the young lady and the heir plotted several times to elope and force their families' hands. What a melody of a beauty dropping her handkerchief to stir lovesickness. What a pair of star-crossed lovers moving heaven and earth. Is this also taught in those storybooks? I grew even more curious about those storybooks. The maids sent by my mother heard everything from start to finish. Neither of them had expected such a scandal to occur in the household. They looked at me in shock, unsure of what to say. I kept them precisely to serve as witnesses, and now that we've uncovered something substantial, I said, both of you sisters heard it with your own ears. My third sister secretly pledged herself in marriage behind everyone's back, implicating all the womenfolk of our household. In ordinary families, drowning her in a pond wouldn't be excessive punishment, but after all, she was raised by my mother's own hands and shares my blood as kin. I don't wish for her death, nor do I want the Duke of Chi's household to lose face. This matter must be settled decisively. Upon hearing this, the 2 maidservants hurriedly asked me, what does the young lady intend to do? I summoned Chunhua, Chosha, and Dongrong and carefully instructed them. What happened today must remain known only to those within these four walls, not a single word is to leak outside. You've done very well this time, saying all that needed to be said. Third sister trusts you. She even came to me earlier asking for your return. After you go back, whatever third sister asks you to do, comply as usual, just remember to report to me immediately afterward. Otherwise, if anything goes wrong, I'll hold you accountable. At this moment, how could Chunhua and the others dare to refuse? They hastily agreed. Jiang Wn is now bewitched by those romance novels. Completely obsessed with her love affair with Wei Juan, since her last attempt failed, she's bound to try again. If we want to end this, now is our only chance. 6. Soon after, the maid secretly brought me the book. I flipped through it and found the handwriting in the novel utterly scribbled and feeble, hardly resembling someone well read in literature. Yet if one were to say he had never studied, there are still commendable aspects in his choice of words and phrasing, only regrettably applied to writing about romantic dalliances. Moreover, much of the content deviates from orthodox teachings, encouraging people to forsake feminine virtues, disregard rules, neglect official careers, and ignore filial piety, focusing solely on finding a soulmate, disregarding the proper boundaries between men and women. Every encounter is filled with affectionate whispers, embraces, and caresses. Casting aside all decorum and propriety just so the two can be together forever, it also touches on distinctions of birthright and lineage, portraying noble and wealthy families in an utterly unflattering light. Anyone who stands in their way is deemed wicked, cruel, and brutal. Even parents and closest kin can become sworn enemies. Such heretical books should never have found their way into the hands of young ladies in their chambers. Who knows how many, like third sister, might become obsessed and deranged, led astray by reading them. I handed the book back to the maid, instructing her to return it exactly as it was to Jiang Wan's cabinet. Then I summoned Xiangzhu and sent her to find the servant who had bought the books for Jiang Wn, ordering him to purchase a few copies for me as well. Xiangzhu, well aware of the dangers of those heretical texts, hurriedly tried to dissuade me. Third young lady forgot all propriety and nearly caused a scandal after reading those books. Please, miss, don't read them. I nodded. I hadn't planned to buy that book to read anyway. It was just meant to serve as evidence for father and mother, with both witnesses and material evidence in place. All that's missing is third sister's appearance. I've hinted at her several times, both subtly and overtly, and even advised her a few times, but Jiang Wn wouldn't listen. Instead, she accused me of being old-fashioned, boring, and some kind of feudal moral guardian. Second sister, are you just going to wait for father and mother to arrange a marriage for you, blindly marrying someone you've never met? Don't you want to find someone you love, have children with them, and spend your life together? If I can marry someone I truly love, and both families agree, that would naturally be ideal. If not, I'd rather marry someone from a well-matched family whom I know well and become the rightful wife, rather than secretly pledging my life to someone like she did. Neither wife nor concubine, just a woman without proper standing. My path diverges from second sister's. We cannot walk together. There's no need for further discussion. Jiang Wn wore a stern expression, clearly intending to sever ties with me. I made one final attempt to persuade her. Jiang Wn, you are a member of the Jiang family. The daughters of the Jiang family rise and fall together. I hope you will consider before acting whether your actions might disgrace the Jiang family's reputation or selfishly bring harm to all your sisters. Jiang Wn ignored me. 2 days later, I received word from Chunhua and Chosha that Jiang Wn had rekindled her affair with Wei Juan. Furious and exasperated, I decided to cut the Gordian knot. I bluntly instructed my maid to tell Jiang Wn that if the Wei family had not yet consented to her marriage with Wei Juan, she should persuade him to abandon the wealth and status of the Marquis's household and elope with her to another place. Jiang Wn was so bewitched by the word love that she actually listened to Chunhua and Chosha's advice, writing a letter to Wei Juan confessing her feelings and even setting a time and place for their elopement. I obtained that letter, copied it exactly as it was, and sent the duplicate to Ningyuan Marquis's residence, keeping the original. I handed it along with the heretical book to the maid sent by my mother. Go and tell mother, third sister has grown up, and it seems our household can no longer keep her. The maids departed with their orders. When mother saw the letter and the book, and heard their report, she was nearly shocked into fainting. She hurriedly summoned me. Wanna has done such a foolish thing. Why didn't you tell me earlier? How could you keep it hidden until now? And why haven't you sent someone to watch over her? It's already too late to watch over her. Even if mother guards third sister's person, she cannot guard her heart. Then just let her do as she pleases, she has no shame. But our Duke Cheese household still has dignity to uphold. Mother was so angry that it was the first time she had spoken harshly to Jiang Wn. I quickly tried to calm her. Mother, please don't be too upset. Young Master Wei might not even show up. Even if he does, he wouldn't agree to leave with third sister. From what I knew of Wei Juan, he was a man of great ambition. Even if he was deeply infatuated with Jiang Wn, asking him to give up the wealth and status within his grasp was something he would likely find hard to do. As I had expected, Wei Juan came, but he arrived alone, without bringing any luggage. I wonder what he said to Jiang Wn, but her figure swayed under the moonlight, and her voice grew much louder. For you, I abandoned my parents and left my homeland. And now you say you're not leaving. Wei Lang, how cruel you are. I think you're the cruel one. For a man, you've forsaken your parents, siblings, and all sense of propriety and shame. Mother was so furious that she rushed out from the darkness, unable to hold her back. I had no choice but to order the maids to restrain Wei Juan and Jiang Wn. Wei Juan tried to flee, but one of the maids I brought kicked him squarely in the chest, knocking him to the ground. At that moment, I wished nothing more than to beat him to death. Jiang Wn was so frightened that she burst into tears, begging her mother for mercy while pleading with me. Sister, please spare him, it's all my fault. Even now, she remained stubbornly deluded. I gazed coldly at Wei Juan. Such a spineless and ungrateful man. I couldn't fathom what Jiang Wn saw in him. Jiang Wn, wise words cannot persuade those doomed to die, and compassion cannot save those who seek their own ruin. You've repeatedly entangled yourself with outsiders, causing scandal after scandal. The Jiang family can no longer tolerate your presence. Now, we're giving you a choice. Return to our ancestral estate and marry a scholar as his proper wife to live out your days. Or fake your death to sever ties with the Duke of Cheese household and elope with Wei Juan. If you choose the latter, you must never set foot in the Jiang family again, no matter your future circumstances, be it wealth or poverty. Jiang Wn wept incessantly, her gaze shifting between her mother and Wei Juan. After a long while, she finally collapsed to the ground in tears, kowtowing to her mother and saying, Mother, please consider me as never having been your daughter in this lifetime. You're so foolish. Her mother also burst into tears, pointing at her and sobbing. Do you know what your birth mother said to me before she died? She told me she had been deceived by her parents her whole life. With no control over her fate, fortunately, she was sold to our household, where she served me and the Duke, and gave birth to you. She had no regrets in life, only wishing for me to raise you well and marry you into a good family as a properly wedded wife, so you could live a smooth and carefree life. I've arranged so many potential matches for you. There are plenty of families better than the Ningyuan marquises, and many willing to take you as their lawful wife. How could you be so foolish as to elope with someone? Don't you know that a proper marriage makes a wife, while elopement makes a concubine? How can you face your deceased birth mother like this? I know mother has chosen many for me, but I only love Wei Lang, and I truly love each other. Mother, please grant us your blessing. Yes, madam, I adore Wanna and will surely treat her well. Madam, please grant us your blessing. You too. Mother looked at Jiang Wn and Wei Juan, unable to comprehend how the world had come to this: unmarried men and women disregarding propriety, shamelessly engaging in love affairs behind their parents' backs. You've indulged in illicit relations without proper matchmaking, mingling without name or status. What kind of honorable gentleman or noble lady does that make you? Even if I were to grant my blessing, would the Marquis of Ningyuan's household do the same? Jiang Wn fell silent, leaving behind only the sound of weeping. My mother. Unable to persuade me any further, was so heartbroken she couldn't speak. She waved her hand at me and returned to the carriage. With a sigh, I signaled the maids to release their hold. From that moment on, the Jiang family would no longer have a third miss. Whether Jiang Wn lives or dies in the future, whether she stays with Wei Juan or separates from him, none of it concerns our Duke of Qis residence anymore. And let the Marquis of Ningyuan's household not think that by holding on to Jiang Wn, they can manipulate our Jiang family. Go back and tell everyone outside that Third Miss has contracted a fatal illness with no cure, and has already been sent back to our ancestral home for burial. If anyone ever mentions Third Miss again, just say they must have mistaken her identity. 7. Jiang Wan's sudden death from illness came as a shock not only to outsiders but even to our own second and third households within the estate. The younger sisters from both households came running to me, weeping uncontrollably. Third sister had been very close to them when she was alive, and her abrupt passing, without them even getting to see her one last time, left them utterly heartbroken. I patted the little sisters on their shoulders. They had no idea they just walked along the edge of a cliff, nearly dragged down by Jiang Wn herself. Fortunately, such hidden dangers have been resolved, and they remain respectable young ladies of the Duke of Qis household. But with Jiang Wan's example fresh in mind, I couldn't help but take precautions. I seized opportunities to visit my sisters' rooms frequently, checking on their attendance and ensuring they weren't reading any inappropriate books. As for the Marquis of Ningyuan's household, without the support of the Duke of Qis family, Wei Juan failed to secure an official position through my father and brother's recommendations as he had in the previous life. If he wishes to pursue an official career, he'll have to take the imperial examinations himself. However, the imperial examinations require immense dedication of time and effort. Wei Juan was keeping Jiang Wn outside as his mistress, and the two were deeply immersed in their passionate affair. How could he possibly settle down to study? In the spring examinations of the first year, he failed. The news arrived just as I was preparing for my betrothal. This time, my mother had learned from Jiang Wan's lesson. She not only considered family background but also scrutinized the character of potential suitors. After days of careful selection, she had finally found a satisfactory match when chaos erupted outside. Rumors spread that a daughter of the Jiang family had become the secret mistress of the heir to the Marquis of Ningyuan. The story was so vividly detailed that all the daughters of the Jiang family were furious. Who dares to spread such vile lies about us? If I find out who they are, I'll tear their mouths apart. The heir to the Marquis of Ningyuan has no moral integrity, keeping a mistress before even marrying his principal wife. Now that trouble has arisen, he wants to use our Duke of Qis household as a shield. How shameless can he be? The little sisters chattered away incessantly, but mother and I remained silent. That day, after seeing Jiang Wn off, the few maids who had accompanied mother and me were all sworn to secrecy. Under the pretext of escorting Jiang Wan's coffin back to our hometown, they were sent back to the old family estate, unaware of the truth. Outsiders believed that the third daughter of the Jiang family had already passed away. Among the remaining daughters, the eldest had long been married off, while the fourth, fifth, and sixth daughters had not yet reached the age of 15. Only I, the second daughter of the Jiang family, had passed the age of 15 and was currently in the midst of marriage negotiations. Such rumors spreading at this moment are clearly aimed at me. This matter must be connected to the Ningyuan Marquis's household, because apart from my mother and me, only Wei Juan from the Ningyuan Marquis's household knew Jiang Wn was still alive. Mother turned pale with anger, fiercely shaking her handkerchief as she cursed. What a heartless and ungrateful wretch! After harming one of my daughters, now they dare harm another. The Ningyuan Marquis's household schemes like this, aren't they afraid of shortening their own lifespans? If they feared such consequences, they wouldn't have schemed against me from the very beginning. The thought of Lady Ningyuan's scheming and calculating face sends a chill down my spine. This woman is full of tricks, making it impossible not to be wary of her. She must have known about Wei Juan keeping Jiang Wn outside, which is why she dared to spread rumors. Waiting for our Jiang family to step forward and clarify, To prevent our Jiang family from denying it and turning the tables, she must still hold some leverage in her hands. I recalled the bundle Jiang Wn took when she left. Inside were mostly her everyday clothes, the jewelry she wore, and those few heretical books she treasured like her life. The clothes were all made by tailor shops, and the jewelry was bought from outside as well, nothing that could prove her identity. What leverage could Lady Ningyuan possibly have? I sat quietly pondering, then turned and saw my reflection in the mirror. Suddenly, it struck me, perhaps I had been mistaken all along. Lady Ningyuan might not have any leverage over Jiang Wn at all. If she dared to come after me, it meant what she held was leverage against me. Xiangzhu, Xiangzhu, I called out loudly, startling Xiangzhu, who hurried in and asked, "What's wrong? What's wrong? Has anyone been in my room recently? Look carefully. Has anything gone missing?" Xiangzhu was baffled by my question. "Miss, has something gone missing? Recently, you've been managing household affairs. So many servants have come to report matters, but most stayed in the outer courtyard. Aside from those of us who usually attend to you, only the wet nurse has entered your room. The maid's indentures are all clenched in my hand, they can't make any big waves. But nurse," I hurriedly opened the cabinet door, rummaging through item by item, only to realize at last that several things were indeed missing. A few gold hairpins, jade bracelets, and even the filigree-inlaid gemstone phoenix hairpin bestowed upon me by Her Majesty the Empress Dowager during my coming-of-age ceremony, all witnessed by the guests, were now gone. "Xiangzhu, take a few maids and go fetch the wet nurse. Send someone to inform my brother that thieves have been spotted in our mansion. Have him take some men to keep an eye on the wet nurse's son, then dispatch others to catch the thieves. Make sure to create quite a stir. But there's no need to report it to the authorities, since you already know who stole the items. Miss, why not report it to the authorities? Are you afraid of airing our dirty laundry? Airing our dirty laundry is the least of my concerns. What I fear is falling into Marquis Ningyuan's trap. If we send the wet nurse's son to the magistrate's office, what if they collude and claim that I gave the items to him to deliver to Wei Juan? Then it would be a case of the thief crying stop thief. And it would only confirm the rumors that the Jiang family's daughter is someone's mistress. Moreover, I have old clothes I no longer wear, and missing one or two pieces wouldn't be noticeable. If they tamper with the garments and embroider my name on them, the evidence would align perfectly. I'd be unable to clear my name even if I jumped into the Yellow River. They want our Duke of Chi's household to swallow this bitter pill, not only losing third miss for nothing but also having to marry off second miss beneath her station. What a pipe dream. Now, I'm going to make the Marquis of Ningyuan's household taste their own bitter medicine, without reporting it to the authorities. I'll stir up such a commotion about the theft that even if the Marquis of Ningyuan's household has my golden hairpin, they won't dare produce it. Thanks to the second and third branches causing trouble amidst the chaos, as soon as we mentioned losing things, they quickly claimed they had lost items too. Second uncle said he lost some banknotes and several antique collections, without even investigating. I knew these must have been taken to his mistress's place. Third aunt genuinely lost a few pieces of jewelry and decorations. Truly, it's hard to guard against thieves within the family. I'm holding off on reporting to the authorities because I have other plans, yet they actually tried to fish in troubled waters and get away with it. I then had the maids and matrons summon third aunt's senior maidservants, first striking them with a stick before offering dates. Soon enough, the maids coog up all the hidden items. After all this commotion, overnight, every noble household learned that the Duke of Chi's residence had been robbed, which actually overshadowed the earlier rumors about the Jiang family's daughter being someone's mistress. After expressing sympathy for us, they all rushed to tighten security at their own homes, terrified of losing even the slightest thing. At the Dowager Duchess of Ping's birthday celebration, someone even asked me what had been stolen and whether we'd caught the thieves. I shook my head. The thief wasn't caught, but fortunately, only a few precious jewels were lost. I'd already notified the local officials to investigate those with sticky fingers and inquire about the whereabouts of those pieces. The Marchioness of Ningyuan didn't look pleased. Having failed twice in her schemes against me, she was undoubtedly dissatisfied. It was also my wet nurse's folly. Her son used to only enjoy a few drinks, but somehow, he'd recently become obsessed with gambling. At first, he managed to win a few small rounds, but later, he lost continuously until he gambled away the family fortune. Even then, he couldn't cover his debts, so he turned his schemes toward me. He knew his mother served as my wet nurse, and since our Duke of Cheese household placed great emphasis on propriety, treating wet nurses exceptionally well, he persuaded his mother to steal my belongings, pawn them for money, and then redeem them after winning at gambling, quietly returning them to my cabinet. Who could have expected the scandal to break so quickly? When my elder brother caught the wet nurse's son, he was still tearfully begging for another chance, claiming he would win at the gambling den and redeem my jewelry immediately. The wet nurse also wept bitterly with regret, saying she couldn't face me or my mother anymore. I carefully inquired when her son had developed his gambling habit, and upon matching the timeline, it coincided precisely with Jiang Wan's feigned death and before my marriage negotiations. This person had laid out an elaborate scheme, not entirely resembling the handiwork of the Marquis of Ningyuan's wife. She was someone who would resort to underhanded tactics within the household but rarely associated with the lowlifes outside. Such despicable and shameless behavior truly resembles Wei Juan's style. My heart trembled. Didn't Wei Juan get his wish to be with Jiang Wen in this life? Why would he scheme against me? Could it be that he, the secret guard I had stationed outside the city to watch Wei Juan and Jiang Wen returned? He received my letter and came early in the morning to report. Young Master Wei is still living with that mistress, though not as inseparable as before. Out of 5 days, his absent for 2 or 3. I followed him carefully twice and saw that young Master Wei returned to the Ningyuan Marquis's residence. The Wei family doesn't have only Wei Juan as their sole male heir. If he were to sever ties with the Wei family over a mistress, there would be plenty of others ready to uphold the family's legacy in his place. His return likely isn't just about showing goodwill and yielding behind the scenes. He must have struck some deal with the Ningyuan Marquis and his wife. Jiang Wen remains the mistress, while he marries another woman as his official wife. Poor Jiang Wen, forsaking the wealth and glory of the Duke of Cheese household, chose instead to soar side by side with Wei Juan. I wonder how she would feel if she knew of Wei Juan and the Ningyuan Marquisate schemes. I tapped my cup restlessly. As long as the Ningyuan Marquisate remained standing, I could find no peace. Initially, I thought Wei Juan was too engrossed in romantic affairs to pass the imperial exams. Even if he did succeed, with my father and brothers in court, we could easily suppress him. By then, the Ningyuan Marquisate would have no title to inherit, and Wei Juan would have no official rank to rise to. Left unchecked, the Marquisate would crumble on its own without us lifting a finger. At present, this plan seems too prolonged, so prolonged that variables could arise at any moment. Keep monitoring Wei Juan, observe where he goes, whom he meets, and what items he delivers. In my past life, Wei Juan falsely accused our Duke Cheese residents of treason and collusion with the enemy, and the evidence was undeniably presented before the Emperor. How did he obtain something that our Duke Cheese residents doesn't have, and from whom did he get it? These are all mysteries that urgently need to be unraveled. Another thing is, Wei Juan suddenly running back to Ningyuan Marquis's residence to plot against me with his mother is truly suspicious. I wonder if he, like me, has been reborn. No, I can't just sit back and wait to be attacked, only defending without striking back. The Ningyuan Marquis's residence is being so aggressive. If I don't teach them a lesson, they'll never stop. I thought of Jiang Wen living far in the suburbs and, taking advantage of Wei Juan's absence, disguised myself and knocked on her door alone. Jiang Wen hadn't expected me to visit her again. Flustered, she invited me inside and poured me tea. The household expenses of Ningyuan Marquis's residence are all controlled by the Marquise. Wei Lang currently has no income, relying only on his monthly allowance, so all expenditures are frugal. The things here can't compare to those in the Duke's residence. Sister, please make do. I didn't take her tea, only asking if she had been out these days and whether she had heard the rumors outside. Jiang Wen shook her head. Since her fake death and departure from the Duke of Cheese residence, She had been living in the suburbs with Wei Juan. Apart from a little maid who did the cleaning, there was no one else around. Perhaps due to her awkward social status, she had never traveled far, only ventured to the outskirts a couple of times, and dared not speak carelessly with others. Thus, she hadn't heard any rumors. I told her about the gossip that Miss Jiang was someone's mistress. Jiang Wn turned pale. Sister, I'm not. Brother Wei promised that once he achieves fame and secures an official position, he would marry me as his proper wife. I'm not a mistress. The proper wife he intends to marry isn't you. I sighed and carefully explained what the Wei family had been doing lately to Jiang Wn, then added, Wei Juan has been deceiving you all along. If he truly cared for you, he would have advised you to return home with us when you severed ties with our Duke Chi's household. He would have pleaded with his mother to allow you to enter their family as his wife, but he didn't. What is he afraid of? That you were born a concubine's daughter? Or that his mother only wants a legitimate daughter from a noble family? If so, when you were still a daughter of Duke Chi's household, his family wouldn't let you in. Now that you have nothing, would the Ningyuan Marquis's family really allow you to enter as their proper wife? Jiang Wan's face turned deathly pale as she listened. Having grown up in the luxurious comfort of Duke Chi's mansion, how could she have known the cruelty and swift storms of the outside world? No, Lord Wei would never treat me like this. He promised we'd be devoted to each other for life, that is different from ordinary men. Indeed, Wei Juan was no ordinary man, because he was utterly ruthless and merciless. I've said all I need to say, little sister. You'd better think carefully about your future. The silver here should cover your expenses this month. While frugality is important, you must still eat properly and dress decently. I put down the silver, didn't look back at Jiang Wn, pulled up my hood, and left. After that, every 10 days or half a month, I would take advantage of Wei Juan's absence to secretly visit Jiang Wn at dusk, trying to persuade her to change her mind. Under my persuasion, Jiang Wan's resolve gradually weakened, even to the point of saying she still wanted to be sisters with me. I smiled. How can someone already dead be sisters with anyone? Today marks the 15th again, counting from the last time. It's been nearly half a month. I stuffed the prepared items into a bundle and headed out the door. Eldest brother saw the servants preparing the carriage and asked where I was going. I told him a destination. Now that it's the beginning of summer, everything is fresh and elegant. Since you're free from official duties, why not invite some friends and take a trip to the countryside? Eldest brother gladly agreed, but just as we were about to depart, he set off properly dressed. While my carriage broke down, by the time the repairs were finished, the sun had already begun to set westward. When I arrived at Jiang Wan's place, dusk was deepening. The breeze gentle and the trees still. Only the sound of the door opening startled a flock of birds resting on the empty ground in front. Sister, sister, the person inside responded swiftly, opening the door quickly as usual and ushering me inside. Miss, are we just going to stand here and watch? That man, he'll be fine. I pressed my lips together. He's the best actor I could find in the entire capital, especially skilled at impersonating women. Xiongju fell silent. Before long, a horse came galloping through the fading twilight. The fish has taken the bait. Go, send someone to fetch my brother. Tell him my carriage has broken down again, stuck halfway, and ask him to come pick me up. The servant went off to carry out the order, while Xiangju and I sat quietly in the carriage, the green willow tendrils overhead occasionally brushing against the roof. The wind sweeping through the tower heralds a rising storm in the mountains. In the distance, the clatter of horse hooves could be heard as the carriage of the Marquis of Ningyuan came to a halt in front of the villa's gate. Wei Siwei helped the Marchioness of Ningyuan alight from the carriage, and from afar, she heard her shout, "Mother, they say the mistress my brother keeps lives in this courtyard. Servants, kick the door open." Immediately, servants rushed forward and kicked the door open. Wei Siwei and the Marchioness of Ningyuan barged in with a noisy crowd in tow. My eldest brother happened to return from an outing and, seeing my carriage, came over to ask a few questions before curiously remarking, "What's going on over there? Such a commotion." I chuckled secretly and said, "I heard it's the mistress young Master Wei keeps in the villa. Why don't you go take a look, brother?" Back then, our Jiang family was falsely accused for nothing. It was truly infuriating. Why not see for yourself who this mistress really is? Hearing this, the eldest brother immediately rolled up his sleeves and strode over. Before he could reach them, Wei Siwei and the Marchioness of Ningyuan stumbled out with flushed faces, followed by someone with half-undone clothes and a bare chest, shouting loudly as they went, "Madam, madam, don't leave, Brother Wei promised to marry me. Jiang Hua, you can't go back on your word." At the first sound of his voice, the eldest brother and the others were stunned. Was this a man? Wei Juan had actually been keeping a man outside. 9. That damn scoundrel. Forget about keeping a Jiang family girl as a mistress, he'd been keeping a Jiang family man all along. The elder brother was so furious he stamped his feet and was about to confront Wei Juan, but fortunately, his colleagues nearby managed to hold him back. The wife of Marquis Ningyuan reasoned that such a remote place would have few visitors. So she deliberately brought along 2 more ladies from other families to catch the adulterers. Never did she expect to find Wei Juan with another man. Flushed with anger, she stormed out the door, only to run into the elder brother and his group by sheer coincidence, throwing everything into even greater chaos. At the break of dawn, the news spread throughout the city. Ningyuan Marquis Wei Juan was keeping a man as his secret lover. Xiangzhu recounted the scene vividly, laughing as she reported to me, "Miss, you weren't there to hear it firsthand, but the gossip outside is quite amusing. They say the Marchioness of Ningyuan led the Countess of Chang'e and her own daughter to catch Marquis Wei and his secret lover red-handed. When they barged in, Marquis Wei was lying properly in bed, while a long-haired figure sat beside him undressing. The Marchioness, thinking it was some shameless woman, slapped the person. But when that figure stood up, towering a full head taller than the Marchioness, and spoke, it turned out to be a man. Both the Marchioness of Ningyuan and the Countess of Chang'e were shocked. Now, whenever the Countess sees someone with long hair, she still asks whether they're male or female. The Countess of Chang'e was sociable, and the Marchioness of Ningyuan had dragged her along precisely to serve as a witness, to catch me and Wei Juan together, spread the scandal, ruin my reputation, and force me to marry him whether I wanted to or not. Little did she know, she understood neither me nor Jiang Wn well enough. She thought that Wei Juan had deceived Jiang Wn into marrying me, believing that as Jiang Wan's elder sister, I would naturally tolerate her presence. Once Wei Juan achieved fame and success in the imperial examinations, he would divorce me and elevate Jiang Wn to the rightful position, restoring everything to its original order, a plan Jiang Wn would surely agree to with delight. Little did she know, this was merely my scheme, a trap set to lure them in. My frequent visits to deliver gifts to Jiang Wn were not only meant to expose Wei Juan's true character but also to entice him into falling into my snare. He thought I still couldn't bear to part with Jiang Wn as my sister, and with the instigation of the Marquis of Ningyuan's wife, he tried to persuade Jiang Wn to drug me, so that he and I could be alone together, and then have his mother bring people to catch us red-handed. Little did he know, this was a trap set by us sisters. The more Wei Wn loved him, the more she hated him when she saw him trying to drug me and conspire to marry me as his principal wife. Jiang Wn threw herself into the river. After Wei Juan came to his senses, he would inevitably seek her out for answers. She didn't want to see Wei Juan again, nor could she return to the Jiang family, leaving her no choice but to drown herself. The currents where she drowned were swift. Apart from a pair of shoes, the Wei family found nothing. Wei Juan's reputation was completely ruined, not to mention noble families. Even daughters from modest households were unwilling to marry a man who kept male concubines. Not only that, but Wei Siwei's engagement also fell through. The Marchioness of Ningyuan lifted a stone only to drop it on her own foot. The Marquis of Ningyuan blamed her for indulging their children's reckless behavior, which had brought shame upon the family. In his fury, he threatened to open the ancestral hall and divorce her. Fortunately, the Marchioness fell under the 3 exceptions rule that prevented divorce, so after shouting a few times, the Marquis had to let the matter rest. My marriage was finally settled to Lin Bianxiu, the son of the Minister of Rights and currently serving in the Hanlin Academy. His family was connected by marriage to the Chen family, who had proposed to my elder brother. Leaving aside other considerations, the Lin family's rule against taking concubines to avoid disputes alone makes them worth marrying into. Meanwhile, the covert guards sent to follow Wei Juan brought back news. After Jiang Wan's suicide, Wei Juan went through a period of depression before gradually resuming his activities. He frequently left the city to meet with various individuals from all walks of life, including those from beyond the borders whose identities were complex and diverse. Our dynasty has been established for less than a century, having gone through 3 generations of emperors before achieving the current stability. However, border conflicts persist unabated. The foreign tribes harbor wolfish ambitions, repeatedly attempting to annex frontier cities, only to be repelled each time by our generals. My eldest brother once trained in the military under third uncle, a man of integrity, courage, and strategy. Third uncle was a rare military talent in our dynasty, yet in his previous life, he fell victim to treacherous schemes, not dying on the battlefield, but upon his triumphant return to his hometown. This time, if Wei Juan dares to frame the Duke of Qi's household again, let's see if he has what it takes. Keep an eye on him. If they exchange anything privately, come back and tell me. Whatever he did to the Duke of Qi's household, I will make sure the Marquis of Ningyuan's household suffers the same, one by one. Next March is an auspicious time, with my wedding date set. The seamstresses in the mansion began working tirelessly on my wedding dress. Layers of crimson-red fabric spread across the entire bed. Xiangzhu walked in and handed me an envelope. Miss. The servant at the second gate said this is an invitation from the Marquis of Guide's household. They've recently acquired several pots of exquisite orchids and are inviting the second young lady to appreciate them. The Marquis of Guide's household has some connections with ours, and the 2 families frequently visit each other, making us quite familiar with one another. Logically speaking, as a young lady about to be married, I shouldn't be going out casually anymore. But recalling that Jiang Wan's improper books came from the Marquis of Guide's household, I accepted the invitation. When the day arrived, after dressing up, I boarded the carriage and headed to the Marquis of Guide's residence. The third daughter of the Marquis, Miss Xu, was the same age as my third sister. Last year, they had sworn sisterhood, but this year they were separated by life and death. Seeing me inevitably brought her to tears. How could such a lovely girl like Sister WN be gone just like that? What terrible illness did she suffer? I handed her a handkerchief to wipe her tears but first asked, "Third sister used to be close to you and often came to play with you." After her passing, I went through her belongings and found a few books. When I asked her maids, they all said she brought them from your residence. Could you take a look? Miss Xu took the books and blushed deeply after flipping just one page, stammering. "This book, I came across it by accident. Sister WN, Sister Qing, and I formed a poetry club, planning to meet twice a month for fun, gathering everyone for a day of enjoyment. Later, the servants went out to buy books and somehow brought this one back. We read it and were all astonished, so each of us bought a copy. It was known in the household that Miss Xu, Jiang WN, and the eldest daughter of the Chengyi Count's family enjoyed composing poetry and gathering for entertainment. But no one expected they would gather to read such scandalous books. I recall an incident not long ago at the birthday banquet of the old Marquis of Jingnan. The daughter of the Vice Minister of the Court of State Ceremonials fell into the water at the Marquis's residence, and while changing clothes, she was seen naked by the Marquis's heir. With no other choice, the 2 families had to arrange a marriage. The daughter of the Vice Minister of the Court of State Ceremonials was also one of the young ladies who participated in the poetry club. It seems she too was led astray by that wicked book. The person who wrote this wicked book must be exposed and brought to light. As I was lost in thought, voices suddenly came from outside the flower hall. Wei Siwei, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, walked in dressed in fresh attire, accompanied by Miss Xu. She saw me and curled her lips in a half-smile. "I heard about second Mrs. Joyous occasion, but haven't had the chance to congratulate you yet. It's just a pity about your household's third miss, such a flower-like person, gone just like that, unable to even taste her own sister's wedding wine." How dare she mention Jiang Wn in front of me? If it weren't for her heartless brother and status-climbing mother, how could Jiang Wn have disappeared without a trace, neither seen alive nor found dead? I sneered coldly. Not everyone is worthy of attending my wedding feast. For instance, if Miss Wei wishes to come, she'll have to see if our household is even willing to allow it. Wei Juan's abduction of Jiang Wn had long since deeply offended the Duke of Qi's household. My mother would absolutely never grant the Ningyuan Marquis's family the courtesy of allowing them to attend. Wei Siwei choked with anger, fearing she might cause trouble and upset me. Miss Xu quickly pulled her aside and urged, "The important thing is for everyone to gather together to admire the flowers and enjoy the wine. We mustn't let harmony be broken." Unable to break free, Wei Siwei could only glare at me and hurl a spiteful remark, "Just wait and see. The Duke of Qi's household will meet its downfall sooner or later. Let's see how smug you'll be then." Her words struck right at the scar in my heart, looking at Wei Siwei's foolish appearance. If someone hadn't revealed something in front of her or if she hadn't overheard something, she definitely wouldn't have been able to say such things. It's Wei Juan. It must be Wei Juan. He failed the imperial examination, and I ruined his reputation with my schemes, without achieving some monumental feat. There's absolutely no way he could turn his situation around. So, is he planning to frame our Duke Qi's residence again? 10. Take this thing and place it in Lord Ningyuan's study, remember. Put it somewhere inconspicuous but not too hard to find. Holding the item I had retrieved from my father's study, I gave it a slight toss before handing it over to the shadow guard. This was someone third uncle had left for eldest brother, highly skilled in martial arts and meticulous in his work. When I wheedled eldest brother into letting me have him, it took quite a bit of persuasion. The shadow guard was saved by my third uncle and raised by him single-handedly. I regard him as half-brother. And he treats me like his own sister. After glancing at what I handed over, the shadow guard's expression changed drastically. This is the border city defense map. Yes, Wei Juan relied on memories from his past life to draw the border city defense map, adding foreign script to frame my Jiang family for colluding with enemy forces. The shadow guard clenched his fists, wishing for nothing more than an opportunity to kill Wei Juan with a single strike, but that would be letting him off too easily. I want the fire he started himself to burn down his own doorstep. After instructing the hidden guards, I quietly placed a cloth bundle back where the city defense map had been stored, clapped my hands lightly, and waited for good news. As the year drew to a close, reports of victories came frequently, and the palace bestowed many fine rewards. Father and mother were busy preparing for the New Year celebrations while also making arrangements for eldest brother's wedding. The wedding was scheduled for the 12th lunar month. Though the weather was a bit cold, mother said marrying a new daughter-in-law before the new year, coinciding with the festivities, would bring double happiness to the household. On the 28th day of the 12th lunar month, just a few days after the new bride had entered the household, the imperial guards surrounded the Duke of Qi's residence. The Marquis of Ningyuan submitted a memorial accusing my father and third uncle of colluding with foreign enemies to secure boundless wealth for the Duke of Qi's household, betraying the nation for personal gain, and putting on a show for the court in cahoots with foreign powers. His Majesty was furious today and dispatched the imperial guards to raid the Duke of Qi's residence. Every member of the household, from top to bottom, was seized by the imperial guards, standing among them. I watched as the guards searched room by room, until they found a package in father's study. Beyond the crowd, Wei Juan's eyes burned crimson like fire. Fixed intently on that package, he watched as the imperial guards peeled back layer after layer, revealing several booklets wrapped in oilcloth. He was suddenly startled, staring at those booklets in disbelief. Even the commander of the imperial guards couldn't believe his eyes after flipping through a couple of pages. He gave a dry cough and tossed them aside. What kind of trash is this? Search again. The mansion was thoroughly searched from top to bottom once more. Fortunately, I had been strict in managing the household recently, leaving not a shred of incriminating evidence, not even the slightest violation. Though my father hadn't fought on the battlefield like my grandfather, he had weathered many storms, seeing the imperial guards grow increasingly disheartened with their search. He relied on past camaraderie to ask their commander, Lord Han, what exactly is the reason for this? I dare say I've been utterly loyal. Not only have I never conspired with foreign enemies, but I've also had minimal contact with officials stationed outside the capital. Why has our mansion been targeted? Lord Han sighed and whispered a few words to my father. They say that when our mansion was burgled, the constables assigned to recover the stolen goods caught the thief and gave him a beating. Not only did the thief confess to what he had stolen, but he also claimed to have seen something he shouldn't have in our mansion. I smiled faintly and bowed respectfully to Lord Han. My lord, what the thief likely saw were some heretical books I purchased from outside. These books do not teach virtue but instead encourage reckless behavior, and they've been translated into multiple languages, fearing there might be deceit involved. I bought a few copies intending to report them to the court through my father for investigation. Little did I expect it would lead to such a misunderstanding. I see. Lord Han nodded in understanding. I picked up the book he had thrown on the ground and handed it back to him, continuing, "This book is obscene and truly unfit for circulation. If you doubt me, you may search the mansions of Marquis Ningyuan and Marquis Guide as well." Lord Han weighed the book in his hand. His expression unreadable, but since he had come out, he needed to bring back some explanation upon his return. So he turned and led his men straight to the Marquis of Ningyuan's residence and the Marquis of Guide's residence. I stood inside the doorway, gazing at Wei Juan from afar, and slowly revealed a smile. The Wei family had once enjoyed a period of glory thanks to the old Marquis in their early years. Later, with no one serving in the military and the Marquis of Ningyuan holding only a nominal post at court, they became of little use. They had long wanted to return to the military and earn merit anew. Wei Juan, unable to succeed through the imperial examinations, sought instead to pursue a path as a military officer. He said the Duke of Qi's household wanted to preserve their wealth and honor, but wasn't the same true for the Marquis of Ningyuan's household? Half a scroll of city defense plans. An entire family reduced to bones. When the Wei family was raided and exterminated, my wedding dress was finally finished. Wearing it, I shone brilliantly, just like the raging flames rising in the Marquis of Ningyuan's courtyard. When Wei Juan held his blade to my neck, the wedding sedan was already approaching the Duke's mansion gate. He somehow managed to escape from the sea of flames, blending into the crowd of servants in my household, and sneaked into my boudoir. Jiangji. Long time no see, Wei Juan, 11. Who would have thought that when we, husband and wife, meet again, it would be under such circumstances? Wei Juan's eye was burned by sparks, half closed and half open, looking terrifyingly abnormal, no longer retaining its former clear and handsome appearance. He stared at me as if I were a piece of porcelain worth admiring. They all say the Jiang family's second daughter is clever, sharp-witted, and composed in crisis, making her an excellent choice for a daughter-in-law. It seems I misjudged you before. He was wrong about this. In my past life, I was married to him for many years, yet his heart was solely set on avenging Jiang Wn. How could he have spared me more than a glance? If he were willing to pay attention, he would know I've always been this way. The young ladies of the Duke of Qi's household, having studied poetry and literature since childhood, with their mothers and governesses constantly instructing them, which one isn't exceptionally clever. As I looked at the dagger pressed against my chin, I recalled that unsolved mystery and asked Wei Juan, in our past life, you blamed my entire Jiang family for Jiang Wan's death. In this life, I fulfilled your wish by letting you and Jiang Wn fly together like lovebirds. Why are you unwilling now? Wei Juan fell silent for a moment before finally speaking in a hoarse voice, sneering softly. Don't think I don't know your intentions. You resent me for loving someone else, for killing you in our past life, so you hate me in Jiang Wn, deliberately drove Jiang Wn out to follow me without status or recognition, and you schemed to make me keep a male lover, ruining my reputation. Jiang Ji, your heart is truly cruel, ridiculous. Back when I gave Jiang Wn the choice to decide, he was right there watching. It's his own incompetence, he didn't dare take Jiang Wn as his principal wife, and now he has the nerve to blame me. Wei Juan, don't flatter yourself. Whether in my past life or this one, I, Jiangxi, have never harbored any affection for you. If not for your mother's schemes trapping me, with your status, you'd never have been able to marry me as your principal wife. Impossible. Wei Juan's gaze turned fierce, the dagger edging closer to my skin without warning. We've been married for years, deeply devoted. How could you feel nothing for me? If not for that, why would you resent Jiang Wn? Why would you strip her of her place as the third miss of Duke Qi's household? Because I will never allow your Wei family to have even the slightest connection with the Duke of Qi's residence again. I will never let my father and brothers help you rise to power in the court. And I will never give you the chance to frame our Jiang family. He thought that by controlling Jiang Wn, he could tie himself to our Duke of Qi's residence and force us to compromise. What a pipe dream. You kept claiming to love Jiang Wn, even going so far as to slaughter hundreds of my Jiang family members for her. I once thought your feelings were genuine. In this lifetime, had Jiang Wn stayed with you, and had you and your mother not been so arrogant and disdainful of her status as a concubine's daughter, had you allowed her to marry you, your Ningyuan marquisate would never have come to the point of being exterminated. It was you who despised her origins and feared she couldn't bring you the wealth and status of your past life, daring to conspire with your mother to force me into marrying into your Wei family. Wei Juan, you are heartless, shameless, and your actions are unforgivable by heaven. Heaven's justice is intolerable. What is heaven's justice? I possess unparalleled talent. I know past lives and future events. I was destined to reach the pinnacle of power, yet you alone destroyed me. Wei Juan listened to my words, his expression frenzied, his speech somewhat incoherent. If only you hadn't driven Jiang Wn out of the house back then. If only your father and brother had been willing to lend me a hand when I soared to great heights. Wouldn't Jiang Wn have easily become the mistress of our Ningyuan Marquis household? It's you, all because of your venomous heart and jealous nature. You ruined Jiang Wn, and you ruined me, and now you still dream of marrying someone as a proper wife, utterly delusional. I sneaked into your boudoir. Tell me, when the wedding party arrives and sees you sleeping with me, how will they view you? Who would dare marry you then? By that time, if you don't want to die, you'll have no choice but to stay with me. You'll have your father arrange a new identity for me, and we'll start over as husband and wife. Once I become the commander of the Imperial Guards, you'll be the commander's lady. Lost in his fantasy, he seemed to believe his dream had already come true. I glanced down at his dagger, smiled faintly, then swiftly drew a blade from my sleeve and plunged it straight into his heart. Wei Juan cried out in pain, his dagger clattering to the ground at my feet. He looked at me, unable to believe that I had actually killed him. I pulled out a handkerchief and wiped my hands. Wei Juan, did you really think you could sneak into my boudoir without my permission? Last life. You didn't hesitate when you killed me. An eye for an eye this life. I've killed you. And now we're even. Wei Juan still wanted to say something. But unfortunately, I had practiced that stab for a long time. It was precise and deep. His eyes remained wide open in death, yet the hidden guard was genuinely concerned for me. Miss, has your wedding dress been stained? I shook my head. The crimson wedding dress, red as blood, wouldn't show any stains even if it were dirted. Brother, take care of him. I must prepare for my wedding. At the same time, news spread of the raid on the printing house that published the heretical books. Though the mastermind behind the writings remained at large, after marriage, I sat on the high platform, listening to the little actor sing the lyrics. Most beloved is West Lake in February's sky, peach blossoms weep with rain, willows smoke rise high, 10 lifetimes to cross the stream in the same boat, 100 lifetimes to share a pillow's note. Unconsciously, I waved my hand and had someone summon the lyricist from the troupe, promising generous rewards. The lyricist arrived, seen only as a slender, petite figure behind the gauze screen. I've met the lady before. The voice was deep, yet not in the manner of a man's tone. Now it all makes sense, why he always wrote about inner chamber affairs, why he constantly urged women to blindly pursue romantic love. So it turns out he was actually a female scholar. Remove the gauze screen. I showed my face and looked at her, while she also stole glances at me. Seeing me staring intently at her, she instinctively turned her head away. Madam, Why does madam keep looking at this humble one? I couldn't help but laugh. You were so bold when writing your books, advising young maidens to disregard their parents' wishes and ignore matchmakers' words. Why are you so timid now? The female scholar was stunned for a moment, then pointed at me and said, You know. Not only do I know, I've also read them. Recalling Jiang Wan's obsession with those books, unable to extricate herself, I was curious why she wrote them. Do you know how many innocent young women your books have harmed? Upon hearing this, the lady scholar immediately flew into a rage. How is that harming them? I've done everything for their good, born in this era. What can they do even as noble young ladies? Aren't they just puppets, manipulated by others? As a woman myself, I refuse to let them enter blind marriages, live as drudges, and waste their lives in misery. I wrote books advising them to be themselves, to aim high, and to bravely pursue love. Have I done wrong? It's not me who killed them, but this cannibalistic feudal morality. I picked up a book nearby, flipped to a certain page, and pushed it toward her. You advised them to disregard their parents' wishes and the matchmaker's words, to follow their own whims and obsess over romantic love. Yet you never wrote about how they should live after leaving their parents and abandoning their homes, nor did you tell them how to face the gossip after engaging in unsanctioned unions. You only urged them to blindly chase love, unaware that without their families, they'd have no support or options, ultimately forced to depend on men and be manipulated again. Given this, can you still claim you've done no wrong? The lady scholar stammered, struggling before retorting defensively. But I also wrote that women shouldn't have to be clinging morning glories, they can be ambitious and strategize. I wrote about women disregarding distinctions between legitimate and illegitimate children, devoting half their lives to national righteousness. You can't focus only on love, you must also have grand ambitions. Ha! I let out a cold laugh. May I ask, Miss, is the current emperor a man or a woman? Are the court ministers men or women? Who makes the laws, men or women? Who heads households, men or women? Women born into this world are shackled by men at every turn, yet you still expect them to believe men's deceitful words. Why don't you write about ungrateful men meeting sudden deaths? Ministers with multiple wives and concubines suffering divine retribution, or philandering young men doomed to lifelong impotence? If you want to awaken conscience, then men should be awakened too. Why only teach women to fight and resist within the inner chambers, yet fail to teach men to respect women, cherish women, take pride in women's political participation, and honor women's wisdom? Because, the female teacher couldn't answer. I tore up the book and threw it into the burning stove nearby. Rewrite it. A new bookstore has opened in town. If you write well enough, we'll have it published there. The pay is twice what you earn at the opera troupe. Really? The lady's eyes sparkled anew. Do you mean what you say? Of course I do. The bookstore owner's surname is Jiang, with the given name Wan. He's somewhat related to me. Jiang, Wan. Jiang Wan isn't your half-sister. She's my third sister, not a half-sister. I forgot to mention, in ordinary families, there isn't much distinction between legitimate and illegitimate children. Expanding the family tree is the wish of every clan. Outsiders judge lineage by the father, not the mother. Only when the father prospers do the children's status rise accordingly. All branches of the family share fortunes and misfortunes alike. Next time you write a book, there's no need to emphasize legitimacy or illegitimacy, otherwise frivolous people might take it seriously and ruin good marriages for worthy sons and daughters. I stood up, had someone escort the female tutor back, and then sent Xiangzhu to deliver a message to Jiang Wan. The second miss said, if her marriage doesn't go well, she'll divorce and come keep you company. Manager Jiang, you'd better run your business well. That concludes the first story. Stay tuned for the next one, it gets even more exciting. The year General Lin hated me the most. I was forced to marry him. He blamed me for causing his imperial sister's tragic death in a political marriage, and I resented him for marrying me despite loving his sister. We were constantly at each other's throats. He kept mistresses outside, each resembling my elder sister. I kept male concubines in the princess's residence, each a handsome man, yet when assassination struck, he shielded me without hesitation. Taking the arrow himself, as he collapsed into my arms, he whispered with relief. Your Highness the Ninth Prince, I owe you nothing now. If there is a next life, could I beg you to let me and the third prince be together, reborn into this life? I took the initiative to stay away and married the young Marquis Gu, who cared only for fine food, yet when I was 3 months pregnant, he suddenly knelt outside the Marquis's residence, calling my maiden name over and over, Shushu. This wasn't how it was meant to be. You were supposed to be my wife. The year Lin Yang hated me most was when I was forced to marry him. On our wedding night, the festive candles burned out, and dawn was breaking when he finally returned. His body chilled with the cold. I sat rigidly on the edge of the bed, sleepless all night. The weight of the phoenix crown and ceremonial robes nearly suffocating me. He stood by the door, his crimson eyes fixed on me like a beast cornered in desperation. Zhao Shu, he spoke, his voice laced with icy shards. It was you. You who drove her away. The her he referred to was my own full-blooded elder sister, the third Princess Zhao Yu, that woman hailed as the pearl of day, radiant and dazzling. She was also the one he cherished above all, loved to the very marrow of his bones. Some time ago, Zhao Yu traveled far to marry into the northern Di tribe, only to reportedly take her own life in the royal tent on a snowy night, leaving no trace of her remains, and I, the ninth princess who had always lived in her shadow, became his wife instead. I clenched the hand hidden in my sleeve, nails digging deep into my palm, using the pain to shield myself from the daggers in his gaze. Lin Yang. I lifted my head to meet his eyes, enunciating each word clearly. If you truly loved her, why didn't you let her be? Why did you marry me? He rushed over abruptly, gripping my wrist with such force it felt like he was trying to crush my bones. Grant her wish. With what shall I grant it? For 3 generations. My Lin family has been loyal and righteous. Must we bear the charge of treason for the sake of a woman? His interrogation was like a bucket of ice water, dousing the last pathetic shred of fantasy in my heart. Indeed, he loved the princess, but he cherished even more the Lin family's century-old reputation and illustrious military achievements. He dared not defy his father's decree of marriage, dared not elope with his royal sister. So he could only watch helplessly as his beloved walked to her doom. Then he poured all his resentment onto me, an innocent substitute, too. We became the most absurd pair of resentful spouses in the capital. Outside the general's mansion, he purchased one villa after another, filling them with women whose features and figures were deliberately modeled after his royal sister. In this way, he obsessively mourned his lost love. I refused to be outdone. I moved out of the general's residence and returned to the princess's mansion bestowed by my father, the emperor. If he could keep substitutes, then I could openly take in male consorts. The number of concubines in his mansion is matched, if not exceeded, by the young gentlemen in mine. I had them play the qin, paint, and perform sword dances, turning the princess's residence into the most vibrant and enchanting haven in the capital. We tormented each other in the most childish and hurtful ways. Like 2 roosters fighting with bloodshot eyes, neither willing to bow first, until that year's lantern festival, when we were ordered to leave the palace together to admire the lanterns. In the crowd, a cold arrow dipped in deadly poison shot through the air, its target aimed straight at my heart. I didn't even have time to react. All I saw was Lin Yang's perpetually icy face. For the first time, twisted in panic, almost by instinct, he threw his body against mine, shoving me aside. The arrow pierced straight through his chest. The warm blood instantly soaked through his clothes and scalded my hand. He collapsed into my arms, his body growing colder by the moment. He looked at me. Those eyes that had always brimmed with hatred were now unprecedentedly calm, even carrying a hint of relief. Ninth Highness. He coughed up blood, his breath faint. I owe you nothing now. I was stunned. Owes me? What does he owe me? If there's a next life? He struggled to force out a smile uglier than tears. Could you, please, let me and the third prince be together? After saying this, his hand fell limp, completely lifeless. The body in my arms weighed 1,000 pounds, yet I couldn't feel a thing. I only felt cold, a bone-chilling cold. So, in his heart, even exchanging his life for mine was merely repayment. repayment for the debt of marrying me yet failing to give me love and respect. Until death, he only thought of being with the princess in the next life. Fine, Lin Yang, if there is an afterlife, I will let you have your way. I will let you both have your way, and also set myself free. 3. The moment my consciousness returned, I found myself kneeling in my father's imperial study. I raised my head and saw my father seated on the dragon throne, his face livid. Clutching a gilded marriage decree in his hand, Zhao Shu, do you admit your guilt? His voice carried not a trace of warmth, like the icy wind of the 12th month. For a moment, I was dazed. This scene felt all too familiar, in my past life. It was in this very imperial study that my father threw the marriage contract between Lin Yang and me onto my face, rebuking me for disregarding sisterly bonds and using despicable means to steal my elder sister's destined marriage. At that time, I couldn't defend myself no matter how hard I tried, so I could only kowtow repeatedly, crying and saying it wasn't me. But no one believed me, not my father the emperor, not Lin Yang, not even my beloved mother, who had always doted on me. She just sighed and told me to accept my fate. They all thought I was jealous of my elder sister, envy that she was born the legitimate heir, envy that she excelled in both literary and martial arts, envy that she could effortlessly win all of Lin Yang's love. That's why, when my father was drunk, I schemed to obtain this marriage that should have rightfully belonged to my elder sister. But none of them knew that night. It was my elder sister who personally pushed me into the imperial study. She held my hand, her eyes brimming with tears, and said her heart belonged to another, someone who was not Lin Yang. She said our father was stubborn, and only by swapping us secretly could she gain her freedom. She begged me to help her, begged me to take her place. Shushu, we're sisters. You'll definitely help me, won't you? As I looked at her tear-streaked face, at those delicate features so similar to mine yet more radiantly beautiful, I found myself nodding inexplicably. I thought I was fulfilling my elder sister's love, but little did I know, I was pushing myself into an abyss of eternal damnation. Ungrateful daughter, I am asking you a question. Father Emperor's roar jolted me out of my memories. This time, I didn't panic and cry like I did in my past life. I straightened my back, met Father Emperor's furious gaze, and spoke calmly. Father Emperor, your child admits her mistake. My reaction clearly took him by surprise, leaving all the reprimands he had prepared stuck in his throat. He frowned, scrutinizing me. Where did you go wrong? Your son erred in coveting what does not belong to him. I lowered my gaze, speaking clearly. The romance between General Lin and Third Imperial Sister is a well-known love story throughout the capital. This marriage should rightfully be theirs. Your child was momentarily confused and sought an undeserved favor, but now I've come to my senses. I only beg your majesty to revoke the decree and allow Third Imperial Sister and General Lin to be united as they deserve. I raised my head, my gaze steady and composed, neither submissive nor arrogant. Father Emperor was stunned. He probably never expected that the 9th princess, who had always been meek and overshadowed by her elder sister in his presence, could display such calm determination. He remained silent for a long time before slowly speaking. Are you serious? Do you realize what kind of family the Lins are? Marrying Lin Yang would make you a future general's wife. Are you truly willing to give that up? I sneered inwardly. A general's wife, in my past life. What did that title bring me besides endless humiliation and torment? I am willing to let go, I answered resolutely. A forced melon is not sweet. I do not wish to ruin Third Sister's lifelong happiness for my own selfish desires, nor do I want General Lin to carry lifelong regret. I beg your majesty to reconsider. For, with these words, I bowed deeply and kowtowed solemnly. As my forehead touched the cold golden bricks, a sobering chill washed over me. In this life, I no longer wish to be a general's wife. I just want to stay far away and watch them perform their tragic love story. The emperor stared at me for a long time, so long that I thought he would lose his temper again, but in the end, he just waved his hand wearily. Forget it, forget it. We shall discuss this matter again later. You may withdraw now. Your son takes his leave. I rose to my feet without the slightest hesitation, turned around, and walked out of the imperial study. The sunlight outside the hall was somewhat blinding. Squinting my eyes, I let out a long sigh of relief. It's truly wonderful to live a second life. 5. Not far from where I had just walked, I bumped into someone at the corner of the palace path. Ninth Highness. It was Lin Yang. He was dressed in a sleek black martial outfit, his posture as straight as a pine tree, his handsome face frozen with coldness. He had clearly heard the rumors and came specifically to confront me, in my past life. He had also stopped me here, cursing me with the most venomous words, calling me a thief who stole others' happiness, accusing me of being despicable and shameless. But now, he just stood there, looking at me with an extremely complicated gaze. There was inquiry in his gaze, suspicion, and a trace of confusion even he himself hadn't noticed. General Lin. I curtsied slightly, my tone distant yet polite. He seemed taken aback by my reaction, his frown deepening. What exactly did you say to His Majesty in the Imperial study just now? I've said everything, what should be said and what shouldn't. I didn't want to argue with him any longer. I just wanted to leave this troublesome place as soon as possible. Zhao Shu. He took a step forward, blocking my path, his voice seething with anger. What game are you playing now? Playing hard to get? Let me tell you, it's useless, even if you call off the engagement today. I, Lin Yang, won't spare you another glance. Oh, I responded indifferently, raising my eyes to look at him. That's truly wonderful. General Lin, please step aside. You're blocking my way. My calmness completely infuriated him. He was probably accustomed to me chasing after his shadow like in my past life, rejoicing or grieving over his every word and action. Now, my unyielding attitude made him feel an unprecedented loss of control. He grabbed my wrist with such force, identical to that on our wedding night. Zhao Shu, what exactly are you trying to do? The pain radiating from my wrist made me frown. I struggled hard but couldn't break free. Let go. My voice turned icy. If you don't explain clearly, I won't let go. He stared at me stubbornly, as if trying to see right through me. Just as we were locked in a stalemate, a clear yet somewhat lazy voice came from not far away. Well, isn't this General Lin, pulling and tugging in public? Bullying our Ninth Highness, this doesn't seem quite proper, does it? 6. Following the voice, I saw a young man dressed in a moon-white brocade robe, leaning casually against the palace wall nearby. He still held an unfinished stick of candied hawthorn in his hand, his eyes curved into crescents. Grinning like a cat that stole the cream, this was none other than the young heir of Dingen Marquisate, Jiyu Yenji, famously known as the capital's most carefree playboy. Cared neither for power nor beauty, reserving his passion solely for fine cuisine. In my past life, I had no connection with him whatsoever. I only heard that he later begged His Majesty for mercy and went to Jiangnan to live as a wealthy idler, spending his days indulging in fine food. What a delightful life. Lin Yang's expression darkened upon seeing him. Young Master Ji Yu, this is a matter between me and His Highness the Ninth Prince. It has nothing to do with you. How could it not? Jiyu Yenji took a bite of candied hawthorn and mumbled indistinctly, if someone bullies my future wife, how could I just stand by and do nothing? His words left both Lin Yang and me frozen in place. Lin Yang let out a mocking laugh, as if he'd heard the most ridiculous joke. Future wife, Jiyu Yenji, are you still half asleep? But Jiyu Yenji ignored him and walked straight up to me. He handed me the remaining candied hawthorn skewer and asked with a grin, Ninth Highness, would you like to try? The hawthorns from this shop are sweet within sour, soft within sweet, truly exquisite. I looked into his sparkling peach blossom eyes, devoid of schemes, devoid of romance, only pure delight in good food and the joy of sharing. Suddenly, I thought, perhaps such a person wouldn't be a bad choice. Marrying him would mean leaving behind the storms of the capital, escaping Lin Yang and my elder sister's tangled web of love and hate, spending each day tending to flowers, savoring delicious food, and living a peaceful life. Isn't this exactly what I wanted? With my mind made up, I reached out and took the candied hawthorn skewer. Thank you, young Master Ji Yu. I looked at him and asked earnestly, does what you said earlier still hold true? Jiyu Yenji blinked, seemingly not registering what had just happened. I repeated myself, you said I'm your future wife, are you serious about that? Jiyu Yenji froze for a full 3 seconds, then looked as if he'd been hit over the head with honey. Suddenly his face split into a grin so wide his eyes disappeared. Absolutely true, truer than gold. If your highness is willing, I'll have my father submit a formal petition tomorrow. Good, I nodded, then turned to Lin Yang, whose face had already darkened like the bottom of a pot. Young General Lin, you've heard it all. Young Master Jiyu and I are deeply attached to each other. I hope you'll conduct yourself with dignity henceforth. 7. With that, I stopped looking at him. Took Jiyu Yenji, who was still somewhat dazed, by the hand, and turned to leave. After walking a few steps, I took a bite of a candied hawthorn skewer. The tartness of hawthorn mixed with the sweetness of the sugar coating exploded on my tongue. The taste was truly exquisite. 8. The news of my impending marriage to Jiyu Yenji was like a massive rock thrown into a calm lake, stirring up waves throughout the capital. No one could understand why I, the 9th princess who had schemed tirelessly to secure a marriage engagement with Lin Yang, would suddenly turn around and choose a frivolous young nobleman known only for indulgence and pleasure. Even my own mother summoned me to the palace, asking with deep concern, "Shushu, are you throwing a tantrum over young General Lin? Marriage is no trivial matter, how can you treat it so lightly?" That Jiyu Yenji, mother, I interrupted her, my tone firmer than ever before. I am not throwing a tantrum. Jiyu Yenji is wonderful, and I wish to marry him. My mother looked at me, hesitating to speak, and finally let out only a long sigh. In this matter, the most intense reactions came from Lin Yang and my elder sister, Princess Zhao Yu. On the day the imperial decree annulling the engagement was issued, Lin Yang stormed directly into the princess's residence. He was drenched from head to toe, as if he had rushed through heavy rain. Rainwater trickled down his sharp jawline. Indistinguishable whether it was rain or sweat, he blocked the doorway of my study, his eyes rimmed red like an enraged lion. "Zhao Shu, must you go this far, using such methods to retaliate against me?" I was practicing calligraphy and didn't even lift my eyelids at his words. "General Lin, mind your words. Marriage is a matter between men and women, each to their own. How can you speak of revenge, each to their own?" He took a step forward, his voice hoarse. "You schemed against His Majesty to marry me, forced AU to leave, and stirred up a storm throughout the city. And now you casually say each to their own. Zhao Shu, what do you take me, Lin Yang, for? What do you take your royal sister for?" I finally set down my brush, raised my head, and looked at him quietly. "General Lin, it seems you've misunderstood something." I spoke slowly. "From the very beginning, I never intended to marry you, not before, not now, and never in the future." "You're lying." He refused to believe it. "If that weren't the case, why did you request that imperial decree arranging our marriage? As for why I sought the decree, you shouldn't be asking me, you should be asking your beloved AU." I looked at his face twisted with anger, feeling utterly indifferent deep down. "Go ask her who exactly pushed whom into the imperial study that night." Lin Yang's body jolted violently, all color draining from his face. He staggered back a step, staring at me in disbelief, his lips trembling without uttering a single word. I ignored him and picked up the brush again, writing the 4 characters, "Time flows peacefully," on the rice paper. In this lifetime, I seek nothing but these 4 words. 9. Lin Yang left, utterly dejected. Not long after, my elder sister, Princess Zhao Yu, arrived. When she arrived, I was in the courtyard looking through the recipe book Jiyu Yenji had sent over. He had filled the entire book with elegant small script, detailing everything from spring peach blossom cakes to winter hot pots, accompanied by adorable illustrations that made one's mouth water. "Shushu," my elder sister's voice sounded behind me. I closed the cookbook and turned around. She was dressed in an elegant white dress, which made her radiant face appear even more delicate and pitiful. "Elder sister." I stood up and bowed in greeting. She took a few steps forward, grasped my hand, and her eyes immediately reddened. "Shushu, I heard. How could you agree to an engagement with Jiyu Yenji?" I withdrew my hand and looked at her calmly. "Why not? You know very well. You know Lin Yang he." She stopped mid-sentence, swallowed her words, and replaced them with an expression of deep distress. "Haven't you always admired Lin Yang? For him, you even, how could you give up so easily? Are you blaming me?" Watching her superb acting skills, I could only feel amused. Elder sister, I have never admired Lin Yang. I enunciated each word clearly. Before, when you thought I admired him, it was merely your own wishful thinking. As for the matter of requesting the imperial decree, we both know perfectly well who it was truly for. Now that I'm voluntarily withdrawing from the marriage to fulfill your wish with General Lin, doesn't this exactly suit your intentions? Zhao Yu's face paled slightly. She probably didn't expect me to speak so bluntly. She bit her lip, tears streaming down her face. Shu, how can you say that? I only want what's best for you. The Lin family is such a prestigious household, and Lin Yang is outstanding among men. I just hope you can have a good future. As for Jiyu Yenji, what does he know besides eating? Marrying him would ruin your entire life. Whether my future is good or bad, there's no need for your highness to worry. I smiled faintly. At least Jiyu Yenji can give me what I want, while Lin Yang cannot. What can he give you? A few plates of pastries, a few dishes. Zhao Yu's voice grew sharp. Zhao Shu, don't be foolish. It's not too late for you to go to Father Emperor and retract your decision. Lin Yang, he does care for you. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. But I don't love him, elder sister. If you truly cared for me, you would bless me. Instead of standing here, urging me to leap back into the fiery pit I've already climbed out of, my words were like a knife, completely tearing away her facade of tender affection. Zhao Yu's face turned extremely grim. She stared at me fiercely, her eyes no longer holding any trace of sisterly love, only jealousy and resentment remained. Zhao Shu, you'll regret this, she hissed through clenched teeth. You're giving up the chance to be a general's wife, something within easy reach, to marry a worthless man. You will surely regret this. I smiled faintly without saying a word. Regret? What I regret most is believing her deceitful words in my past life and marrying Lin Yang. 10. On the day of the grand wedding, the weather was exceptionally fine. Dressed in bright red bridal attire, I sat before the dressing table, gazing at the unfamiliar features reflected in the mirror. Without the weight of a phoenix crown and ceremonial robes, only delicate pearl and jade adornments embellished her, making her entire demeanor appear light and radiant. When Jiyu Yenji came to fetch his bride, unlike other imperial sons-in-law who would compose poems urging the bride to dress, he stood outside the door and recited a long list of dish names instead. My dear, I've brought you roast suckling pig from Fumanlu, crispy skin and tender meat. And there's 8 treasure duck from Qingyutang, it melts in your mouth. Come out quickly, or it'll get cold. All the guests in the room burst into laughter, doubling over with mirth. Even the usually solemn wedding matron couldn't help but smile. I lifted my skirt and pushed the door open myself. Outside the door, Jiyu Yenji was dressed in equally festive red robes, which made his lips appear redder and teeth whiter, enhancing his striking handsomeness. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. And he was indeed holding 2 food boxes in his hands. He handed the food boxes to me and grinned foolishly. Hungry? Have something to eat first. I gazed into his clear eyes, and the frozen place in my heart from past lives seemed to quietly crack open a sliver. I took the food box and nodded. Let's go. The wedding ceremony was completed. On the wedding night, there was none of the cold loneliness and waiting from past lives. Jiyu Yenji carefully removed the hair ornaments for me, then dragged out a large box from under the bed as if presenting a treasure. Upon opening it, the box was filled with a dazzling array of snacks and treats from various places. Hee, I was afraid you'd get hungry at night, he said, scratching his head. I wasn't sure what you'd like, so I bought a little of everything. Try this plum blossom pastry, sweet and sour, great for whetting the appetite. He picked up a piece and brought it to my lips. I opened my mouth and took a bite. Indeed, it was pleasantly sweet and sour, very tasty. Is it good? He asked, looking at me with eager anticipation. I nodded. He immediately smiled like a child who had been given candy. At that moment, it suddenly occurred to me that marrying Jiyu Yenji might be the most correct decision I've made in 2 lifetimes combined. 11. Married life was peaceful and warm. True to his demeanor, Jiyu Yenji showed not the slightest interest in court affairs. My greatest daily joy is taking me around to search for delicious food, or cooking myself and experimenting with new dishes. My princess residence gradually became filled with the aromas of various foods. However, things were not going smoothly for Lin Yang and Zhao Yu. After I broke off the engagement, my father did not immediately issue an edict betrothing Zhao Yu to Lin Yang. The emperor's heart is unfathomable. Perhaps my words at that time aroused his suspicion. Or perhaps he never took the true love between my elder sister and him seriously in the first place. In any case, he set the matter aside. Without the emperor's decree of marriage, the Lin family would never dare to propose to a princess who had once been betrothed to the northern Di. They became another awkward and resentful couple in the capital. Occasionally, I would overhear some news about them from the idle chatter of palace maids. It was said that Lin pleaded with the emperor several times, only to be rejected each time. It was said that the princess grew increasingly haggard in the palace, repeatedly seeking to see me, but I turned her away each time under the pretext of recuperating from illness. I heard that Lin Yang had started drinking heavily, often riding his horse at night, lingering outside the general's mansion I had already moved away from. To me, these rumors were nothing more than insignificant whispers in the wind. I had long made up my mind to sever all ties with them, until that day, when Jiyu Yenji and I returned from tasting freshly brewed fruit wine at a farmhouse outside the city, and at the entrance of the princess's residence, I saw Lin Yang again. 12. He stood there, his figure solitary, as if he had been waiting for a long time. Upon seeing our carriage, he walked straight over. Jiyu Yenji stepped down first, then turned and naturally extended his hand toward me, ready to help me alight. Lin Yang's gaze was fixed intently on our clasped hands. The gaze was like a poisoned dagger, carrying an intensity of jealousy and regret I had never seen before. Zhao Shu, he spoke, his voice hoarse and strained. Come out. I need to talk to you. Jiyu Yenji shielded me behind him, frowning. General Lin, it's late. My wife and I need to rest. Whatever you have to say, let's discuss it tomorrow. I'll only speak to her. Lin Yang's emotions were running high as he bypassed Jiyu Yenji, trying to get closer to me. Shu, come with me. I'll take you to Jiangnan, anywhere you want. Let's start over. 13. Looking at his frenzied appearance, I could only feel absurdity. General Lin, you're drunk. I'm not drunk, he retorted loudly, his eyes bloodshot. I'm perfectly sober. Zhao Shu, I regret it. I've regretted it since the moment you called off the engagement. I can't sleep night after night. My mind filled with nothing but you. I was wrong. I shouldn't have misunderstood you, shouldn't have hurt you. Please forgive me, won't you? We were meant to be together. His so-called heartfelt confession didn't move me in the slightest. I found it utterly ironic. In my past life, he discarded me like worthless trash. In this life, I abandoned him. Yet he turned back to cling to me desperately. Are all humans this self-degrading? Lin Yang, I looked at him, enunciating each word with utmost clarity. You did nothing wrong. The fault lies with me. He froze, a glimmer of hope flashing through his eyes. I continued, my mistake was falling in love with a selfish and foolish man like you in my past life. My words struck Lin Yang like a resounding slap across the face. The hope in his eyes instantly extinguished, replaced by utter desolation. He staggered, as if all strength had been drained from his body. Selfish, stupid, he murmured to himself. As if chewing over the meaning of these two words, his face twisting into a smile uglier than tears. Yeah, you're right, I'm just a selfish, stupid bastard. He raised his head and looked at me deeply, his eyes churning with emotions too complex to name: remorse, pain, and a trace of despair I couldn't comprehend. Zhao Shu, if I were to tell you the truth about why your elder sister volunteered for the marriage alliance back then, would you, still? No, I cut him off without hesitation. The truth no longer matters to me, whether it was my sister's schemes or his cowardice. They're all in the past now. I don't want to be dragged into their disputes anymore. My resolute rejection became the last straw that broke him. He let out a bitter laugh, stopped pestering, turned around, and disappeared step by step into the night like a walking corpse. 14. Darling, don't be angry. Jiyu Yenji held my hand tightly and comforted softly. It's not worth getting angry over someone like that. If he dares to harass you again, I'll set my father's big wolfhounds on him. I looked at his nervous yet earnest expression, feeling a warmth in my heart, and couldn't help but laugh. Alright, after that night, Lin Yang indeed never appeared again. However, rumors gradually began to circulate in the capital. Some said that General Lin had volunteered to garrison the border, heading to the harshest northern frontier. Others claimed that Princess Zhao Yu fell gravely ill in the palace. Her appearance withered, no longer possessing her former radiance. As for me, under Jiyu Yenji's meticulous feeding and care, my days grew increasingly comfortable and delightful. 2 months after our marriage, the imperial physician came to check my pulse and unexpectedly diagnosed joyful news. I'm pregnant. This news sent both the princess's residence and the Ding'an Marquis's household into a frenzy. Jiyu Yenji was so overjoyed he acted like a fool, constantly buzzing around me all day. One moment worrying I'm not eating well, the next fretting I'm not sleeping soundly. He'd practically tuck me into his pocket if he could. He even dug out his treasured cookbook, meticulously studying what pregnant women should and shouldn't eat. 3 meals a day, he'd personally cook, inventing all sorts of delicious dishes for me. My pregnancy symptoms were mild, but my appetite became surprisingly hearty, under Jiyu Yenji's attentive care. Within just 3 months my cheeks had noticeably rounded out. I often leaned back on the recliner in the courtyard to bask in the sun, watching Jiyu Yenji's busy figure in the small kitchen, feeling utterly at peace. I thought life would continue peacefully like this forever, until that day, 15, that day. The sunlight was just right, and I felt a bit lazy. After waking from my nap, I craved some sweet and sour apricots. Jiyu Yenji then eagerly went to the orchard west of the city to pick the freshest ones for me himself. I was reading alone in the mansion, and as I read, I began to feel drowsy again. In my drowsiness, I had a dream. I dreamed of returning to my past life. In the dream, I was back on that night of the Lantern Festival. The icy arrow pierced Lin Yang's chest, and he collapsed into my arms, his blood staining my dress red. Ninth Highness, I owe you nothing now. If there is a next life, I beg you, let me be with Third Highness. That face of relief, those lifeless eyes, appeared vividly before me once again. My heart gave a sudden jolt, and I woke from the dream drenched in cold sweat. Your Highness, what's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? The maid Xiahe, noticing my pale complexion, hurriedly brought me a cup of warm water. I took the cup and drank a sip, barely suppressing the turmoil in my heart. Why am I still dreaming of him? I had clearly let go, clearly started a new life. So why does this man still haunt my dreams like a lingering ghost? Your Highness, the Marquis's residence sent someone with a message, saying, Xiahe's expression was somewhat peculiar, hesitating and stammering. Saying what? I frowned. They said General Lin is kneeling at the entrance of the Marquis's residence. 16. My hand trembled, and the water cup nearly fell to the ground. Lin Yang, what is he doing at the entrance of Ding'an Marquis's residence? What does he want to do? I don't know. I only heard that he refuses to see anyone and says nothing, just kneeling there stiffly. The Marquis sent people to drive him away, but he wouldn't leave, and it's already drawn quite a crowd. My heart sank abruptly, and a sense of foreboding surged within me. Hadn't he already volunteered to guard the frontier? Why would he suddenly make such a shocking and unconventional move? Prepare the carriage, we're heading to the Marquis's residence, I decided promptly. I couldn't let him disrupt Jiyu Yenji and the tranquility of Ding'an Marquis's household. The carriage raced all the way, and even before reaching the entrance of the Marquis's residence, we could already see the dense crowd gathered ahead. I instructed the coachman to stop at a distance and, supported by Xiahe, quietly entered the mansion through a side door. Lady Jiyu Yenji's mother, the Marchioness of Ding'an, had long been anxiously pacing around the hall. Upon seeing me, it was as if she had spotted a savior. Shushu, you've finally arrived. Please go take a look. That young General Lin seems to be possessed, kneeling at the gate and refusing to leave no matter how we persuade him. What kind of situation is this? After calming her with a few words, I walked straight to the main gate of the Marquis's residence. Through the crack in the door, I caught a glimpse of the scene outside. Lin Yang was dressed in thin blue robes, kneeling upright on the stone pavement with his back straight. His hair was disheveled, his face deathly pale without a trace of color. lips cracked and peeling, his entire appearance haggard beyond recognition. 17. The surrounding townsfolk pointed and whispered among themselves, "Isn't that General Lin? Why is he kneeling here?" I heard his here to beg Princess Ninth, beg Princess Ninth. Didn't Princess Ninth already marry young Master Gu? Is he trying to steal her? TSK. What a sin. I clenched my fists, a wave of frustration rising in my chest. What does he actually want to do? Is this his way of forcing me to go out and meet him? Does he intend to shatter the peaceful life I've worked so hard to build with these citywide rumors and gossip? At that very moment, as if sensing my gaze, he slowly lifted his head. His gaze pierced through the crowd with precision, landing on the crack of the door where I stood. Our eyes met. His eyes no longer held the regret and pain from before, but rather something deeper, like the madness and stubbornness of a drowning man clutching at his last piece of driftwood. He parted his parched lips and, mustering all his strength, hoarsely called out my name. "That is not Ninth Highness, nor is it Zhao Shu, rather, it is my maiden name. The one that only those closest to me would ever call me, Shu Shu." 18. A single cry, as if it had drained him of all his life's strength. The surrounding chatter abruptly ceased. Stunned by his heart-wrenching cry, he knelt there, like a statue of despair, facing the gates of the Marquis's residence, calling out stubbornly, over and over again, "Shu Shu, Shu Shu, this shouldn't have been the outcome. Shu Shu, come out and see me." His voice grew hoarser and weaker. But each word struck my heart like a heavy hammer. The child in my womb seemed to sense my unease and stirred slightly. Instinctively, I shielded my belly, my face growing paler. "Shu Shu." He seemed to have exhausted his last ounce of strength, his body swaying slightly, yet he stubbornly refused to collapse. He gazed toward the door, two clear tears streaming down his face, his voice thick with despair and pleading. "Shu Shu, you should have been my wife." 19. Lin Yang's heart-wrenching cry struck like an invisible hammer, silencing all surrounding whispers in an instant. All eyes were fixed on the tightly shut vermilion gates of the Marquis's residence and the man outside who seemed possessed by madness. I gripped the doorframe, my knuckles turning white. As the faint fetal movement in my womb now churned into overwhelming unease, he knew what the name Shu Shu meant to me. In our past life, he had never called me that. To him, I was always Ninth Highness, Zhao Shu, the barrier standing between him and the imperial elder sister. "Shu Shu, you should have been my wife." This statement was less a belated confession and more like a verdict from hell. It signaled that the nightmare I had struggled so hard to escape was now returning in an even more twisted and terrifying form. "Shu Shu, no, there are too many eyes outside. You're carrying precious cargo now. You absolutely must not go out." Lady Dingen grasped my arm. Her voice filled with urgency. I took a deep breath, suppressing the turmoil in my heart, gently patted the back of her hand, and gave her a reassuring look. "Mother, it's all right. Some matters, if not settled face to face, will only lead to endless trouble." What he wanted was an outcome, the outcome he remembered. If I avoided meeting him, he would only think I was sulking or playing hard to get, and would resort to even more outrageous actions. I pushed aside the madam's hand, ignoring Xiaoha's startled cry behind me, and personally pulled open that heavy mansion gate. 20. With a creak, the door opened, the clamor and light from outside rushed in together. Standing inside the door, backlit, I gazed coldly at the man kneeling on the ground, seeing me emerge. Lin Yang's lifeless eyes erupted with astonishing brilliance. He struggled to stand, but his knees had gone numb from kneeling too long, causing him to stagger and fall back down in utter disarray. "Shu Shu, you finally agreed to see me." He looked up at me, his eyes filled with undisguised ecstasy and anguish. I ignored his words, calmly sweeping my gaze over the growing crowd around us. Though my voice wasn't loud, it carried clearly to every ear. "General Lin, what is the meaning of this? The Emperor bestowed this marriage, and I have long been wed to Marquis Gu, by kneeling before my husband's residence today. Do you intend to make both the Dingen Marquis's household and my princess's estate the laughingstock of the entire capital?" My words carried not a trace of past affection, only reproach and detachment. The ecstasy on Lin Yang's face froze instantly, As if doused from head to toe with icy water, he stared at me in disbelief. That's not what I meant, Shushu. This shouldn't be how things are between us. Have you forgotten? The Lantern Festival. Enough, I sharply interrupted him. The Lantern Festival, that was the day of my death in my past life. What he called repayment. How dare he bring it up? I took a step forward, emerging from the shadow of the mansion gate, letting the afternoon sunlight fall on my face, illuminating the icy chill in my eyes. Lin Yang, I'll ask you just one thing. What place does your action today leave my husband? Your husband? Lin Yang repeated the words slowly, his face twisting into a frenzied smile. My wife, how could she have another husband? Shushu, come with me. I'll give up everything, my official rank, military merits, the Lin family's century-old reputation. I'll abandon it all. I'll take only you. We'll go south of the Yangtze, beyond the Great Wall, anywhere at all. I should have done this in my past life. The moment the words previous life were uttered, my heart trembled violently. Sure enough, he had also returned, 21. This realization sent chills down my spine. So, it wasn't repentance or regret that brought him back. He merely carries memories from his past life, forcibly trying to correct what he deems wrong in this present existence. He doesn't love me, he's only satisfying his belated, ridiculous possessiveness. Lin Yang. I look at him, enunciating each word with a voice as cold as a venom-coated blade. Let me say this one last time. I, Zhao Shu, am the wife of Jiyu Yenji, heir to the Marquis of Dingen. In this lifetime, I have nothing to do with you. Lin Yang, your debts and regrets from your past life are none of my concern. If you truly feel remorse, you should stay far away from me, not drag me into another disgraceful farce like this. Unrelated, he abruptly stood up, swaying violently from the sudden movement as if he might collapse at any moment. He stared at me with bloodshot eyes. Was the arrow I took for you fake? Was it fake when I collapsed in your arms, begging you to fulfill my wish? Zhao Shu, that was my life. I traded my life for your safety. How dare you say it's unrelated to me? His hysterical questioning tore open the most unbearable scene from our past lives, exposing it mercilessly under the broad daylight. The surrounding crowd gasped collectively. My entire body trembled with rage, and my hand clutching my abdomen tightened even more. How dare he? How dare he use this matter to threaten me? Just as my blood boiled with anger, leaving me almost speechless, a clear yet icy voice came from beyond the crowd. General Lin, are you suggesting that a single life is enough to trade for my wife? 22. The crowd automatically parted to make way. Jiyu Yenji strode forward briskly, carrying a bamboo basket. The usual lazy smile was gone from his face. His beautiful peach blossom eyes now narrowed with an unprecedented sharpness. Instead of looking at Lin Yang first, he walked straight to my side. He took off his own robe and draped it over my shoulders without a word, pulling me into his embrace. His palm was warm and dry, gently stroking my back. Don't be afraid, I'm back, he whispered to me. Just 6 simple words, yet they acted like a shot of adrenaline, instantly calming me down. Only after comforting me did Jiyu Yenji turn around to face the teetering Lin Yang. He shielded me behind him. Though his frame wasn't particularly burly, he stood like a mountain, sheltering me from all storms. General Lin, Jiyu Yenji's tone was polite, yet carried undeniable resolve. I don't care what you mean by past life. All I know is that in this lifetime, with imperial decree as matchmaker and rights as witness, Shushu is my wife, and now, she carries my child in her womb. He deliberately emphasized the words my child. Lin Yang's gaze, passing over Jiyu Yenji's shoulder, fixed intently on my slightly swollen belly that hadn't yet begun to show. His body trembled violently. The last trace of color draining from his face, the look in his eyes was even more despairing than when he had died in my arms in our past life. The child, he murmured absently, as if all his soul had been drained away. That's right, my child, the future heir of the Dingen Marquisate. Jiyu Yenji took a step forward, his presence overwhelming. General Lin, today at the gates of my marquisate, you persistently harassed my wife with your words. Do you believe the Dingen Marquisate has no one left, or that the dignity of the royal family can be trampled upon at will? Using past affairs to threaten a pregnant princess, is this the upbringing of 3 generations of loyal service from your Lin family? 23. Jiyu Yenji's words struck at the heart with every syllable. He made no mention of love or affection, speaking only of propriety, family honor, and imperial authority. Lin Yang was left speechless by his question, staggering back a step. Lips trembling but unable to utter a sound, his twisted logic, belonging to a past life, crumbled instantly before the ironclad rules of this one. Guards! Jiyu Yenji no longer looked at him, raising his voice. General Lin is troubled by love and mentally distracted. Escort him back to his residence immediately for rest. This matter ends here. If any more rumors spread, don't blame me, Jiyu, for disregarding our colleague relationship. The Marquis's guards responded promptly. Flanking the devastated Lin Yang on either side, Lin Yang didn't resist, he just looked at me, his eyes filled with shattered, endless darkness. At the moment he was dragged away, he mustered his last bit of strength and silently mouthed 2 words in my direction. I understood those 2 words. What he said was, "Why? Why aren't you following the script from our past life? Why don't you love me anymore?" I coldly averted my gaze, allowing Jiyu Yenji to lead me into the mansion. The vermilion gates closed heavily once more, cutting off everything outside. 24. Back in the room, Jiyu Yenji dismissed everyone and personally poured me a cup of hot tea. I held the teacup, but my hands still trembled. Jiyu Yenji sat beside me, hesitated for a moment, then asked, "What did he mean by past life?" I raised my head and looked into his worried eyes. The ice in my heart shattered completely. I turned my hand to hold his, gently resting my head on his shoulder. "Jiyu Yenji. I had a very long, very bad dream." My voice was hoarse with exhaustion. "In the dream, I married him and lived miserably. Later, he died, and so did I. Now, the dream is over." I lifted my head and looked at him earnestly. "Thankfully, when I woke up, I had married you." Jiyu Yenji froze, staring at me as his eyes slowly reddened. He didn't press for details about the dream, but simply opened his arms and pulled me into a tight, crushing embrace. "It's okay," he murmured over and over in my ear. "Shushu, it was just a dream. With me here, no one can give you nightmares anymore." I closed my eyes and hugged him back. Yes, it was just a dream. Lin Yang was forcibly taken away, and the absurd farce at the Marquis's residence finally came to an end. But I knew this was only the beginning. 25. Returning to the room, the warmth from Jiyu Yenji's palm seeped through my clothes, dispelling the last trace of chill in my heart. He didn't press further about what that so-called dream really was. He simply stayed quietly by my side, peeling an orange for me and feeding it to me piece by piece. Honey oranges from the orchard west of the city. "I've tasted them, they're not sour." He looked at me. Those peach blossom eyes that always carried a smile now filled with seriousness. "If you don't like them, I'll get you something else." I shook my head and opened my mouth to accept the segment of orange. The sweet juice spread in my mouth, suppressing the churning discomfort in my chest. "Jiyu Yenji." I looked at him. "What happened today will likely bring you and the Marquis's household quite a bit of trouble." "Trouble?" He chuckled lightly and peeled off another segment of orange. "Our Dingen Marquisate has been loyal and virtuous for generations. And my marriage to Jiyu Yenji was properly arranged with the current dynasty's princess. If someone dares to cause trouble at our doorstep, it's never us who should be worried." His tone was light, but I caught a fleeting cold glint in his eyes. This man, who usually seemed preoccupied only with pots and pans, was not truly ignorant of worldly affairs. He had simply sheathed all his sharp edges, revealing only the most harmless and gentle side to me. "Lin Yang seems to remember things from his past life too." I finally spoke up. The matter was too bizarre, but I didn't want to hide it from Jiyu Yenji. His hand feeding me oranges paused briefly before continuing as if nothing had happened. "What if he does?" He held the orange slice to my lips, his voice steady. "That was a matter of past lives. In this life, you are my wife, the mother of my child. If he dares to harass you again, I'll ensure his fate in this life mirrors his end in the last." His words carried a ruthless edge. My heart settled, and I leaned against his shoulder, saying no more. 26. Just as Jiyu Yenji had predicted, What began as gossip in the streets swiftly escalated into a storm within the imperial court. Young General Lin has gone mad. This news spread throughout the entire capital in just half a day. Some say he offended the princess, committing an act of great disrespect. Others claim he was lovelorn, heartbroken from unrequited affection. Various versions of rumors pushed the Lin family into the eye of the storm. The emperor was furious. In the imperial study, priceless porcelain lay shattered across the floor, pointing at the old General Lin He, who had come to plead guilty. His body trembled with rage beneath the dragon robe. Good. What a fine Lin family, raising such an excellent son, openly threatening the princess and trampling on the royal family's dignity. Do you intend to rebel? Lin He knelt on the ground. His graying hair disheveled, his aged face devoid of color. He couldn't fathom how his son, who had always been his pride, so composed and self-restrained, could commit such madness. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. My worthless son must be possessed. Lately, he's been spouting nonsense and acting delirious. I'll have him bound and sent to the frontier at once, never to return to the capital. Delirious, the emperor sneered coldly. I think he's perfectly lucid. Didn't he wish to marry my daughter? Very well, I shall grant his wish. An imperial decree was dispatched from the palace with unprecedented speed, not to the Marquis of Dingan's residence, nor to the Lin family. Instead, it was delivered to the palace of 3rd Princess Zhao Yu, 27. When I received the news, I was drinking calming soup personally prepared by Jiyu Yenji. His Majesty decreed that 3rd Princess Zhao Yu be betrothed to Lin Yang. They are to depart immediately for the northern frontier together, forbidden to return without imperial summons. He finished speaking and cautiously observed my expression. My hand holding the soup bowl remained perfectly still. Father Emperor's move was truly ruthless and absolute. Instead of punishing Lin Yang for his grave disrespect, he granted him his wish. Didn't he keep saying he wanted to marry a princess? Fine, I shall bestow upon you a princess. However, this princess is not that princess. He firmly bound Zhao Yu and Lin Yang together, exiling them both to that bitter, desolate land. This preserved the royal family's dignity, punished Lin Yang's arrogance, and completely severed all his thoughts of me. From then on, Lin Yang became the 3rd princess's consort, my legitimate brother-in-law by name and right. Between us lies the divide of ruler and subject, the barriers of propriety and law. The chasm of blood ties and moral codes, leaving no possibility whatsoever for imperial sister Zhao Yu. This imperial decree was more akin to a death warrant. The Lin Lang she pined for now carried her own younger sister in his heart. The marriage she had dreamed of had become a disguised form of exile. She was to marry a madman and accompany him to a frozen, hopeless abyss with no chance of escape. This tormented her more than death itself. It was said that when the imperial sister received the decree, she fainted on the spot. Upon waking, she smashed everything breakable in her chamber, weeping and screaming to see me, to see our father the emperor. The palace gates were locked, and no one could see her. 28. 3 days later, an extremely plain carriage, carrying Zhao Yu dressed in plain white clothes, it silently drove out of the palace gates under the escort of several squads of imperial guards. At the city gate, she reunited with Lin Yang, who was equally haggard and under the watch of his family, and together they embarked on the journey to the northern frontier. No grand procession stretching miles, no house filled with guests. This pair, once hailed as the perfect golden couple in their past lives, found their union in this lifetime to be so wretched and pitiful. I did not go to see them off. Jiyu Yenji wouldn't allow me to go either. He said the wind was strong and not good for me and the child. He accompanied me in the warm pavilion of the mansion, setting out a plate of freshly baked osmanthus cakes. Try some. This year's fresh osmanthus. I added honey-cured orange peel to make the flavor more refreshing. I picked up a piece and put it in my mouth. The delicate fragrance of osmanthus intertwines with the slight sweetness of orange peel, creating a sweetness that is rich but not cloying. Outside the window, the autumn wind rustles mournfully, swirling fallen leaves across the sky. Yet where I stand, it is as warm as spring. I thought that with their departure, everything would finally settle into place. At last, I can live the peaceful life I've always wanted, one filled only with good food and tranquility. But I forgot, some people, even if they're far away, always find a way to cast their shadow into your life. 29. A month later, urgent news came from the northern border. Lin Yang, in a skirmish with the northern DI, was severely wounded while saving Zhao Yu. Now hanging by a thread between life and death, the news reached the capital, shaking both the court and the public. Some praised him for his loyalty and righteousness, while others lamented his heroic spirit cut short. The emperor fell silent for a long time before ordering the finest healing medicines to be sent to the northern frontier. As for me, that very night, I received a letter from Zhao Yu, delivered through intermediaries after much difficulty. On the letter paper, there were only a few hastily scribbled lines, yet they radiated a sense of hysterical madness. Zhao Shu, are you satisfied now? You ruined me, and now you're going to ruin him too. He's dying, and all he calls out is your name. He says, in his past life he died once for you, and in this life, he's still going to die for you. Zhao Shu, you monster, what have you done to him? If he dies, I swear I'll haunt you even as a ghost. I held the letter to the candle flame, watching it slowly turn to ashes. My heart could no longer find peace. I caressed my slightly swollen belly, feeling only a bone-chilling cold that spread from the soles of my feet to every limb. Lin Yang, do you truly wish to die so badly? You repay me with your death from a past life. Must you once again curse me with your death in this lifetime? Ashes drift from my fingertips like black snow, cold and desolate. I caress my belly, and the child seems to sense my unease, stirring faintly within. This faint pulse of life is now my only warmth. 30. What's wrong? Jiyu Yenji had somehow entered unnoticed, wrapping his arms around me from behind and resting his chin lightly in the crook of my shoulder. His voice carried a hint of morning hoarseness. Reading those messy letters again. I've told you, just have the servants burn them. He noticed the last remnants of ashes by the candlestick and frowned slightly, pulling me closer. From the north, I leaned into his warm embrace, my voice muffled. What did he say? He said he's going to die again. Jiyu Yenji fell silent for a moment, then spoke in an utterly indifferent tone. Oh, then let him die. The northern border is cold, corpses don't rot easily. It'll save us coffin money. His callous words almost made me laugh, but my eyes stung before the laughter could come. I turned around and buried my face in his chest. Jiyu Yenji, I'm scared. Scared of what? He gently stroked my long hair. Afraid he'll die and your royal sister will come after you. Or afraid, your conscience won't let you rest. I shook my head. I'm afraid he'll die like a madman, nailing his death as a lifelong cross upon me and our child. I'm afraid all of Chang'an will say Lin died for me. I'm afraid our child will be born into a world of pointing fingers. This was Zhao Yu and Lin's cruelest scheme. If they couldn't have happiness, they'd destroy my peace. They used their own lives to weave an inescapable cage around me. Jiyu Yenji cupped my face in his hands, gazing intently into my eyes. Shushu, look at me. We can't control what others say, but our hearts, we can guard them ourselves. As long as you don't admit it, this matter will never concern you. You didn't force him to go to the northern frontier, much less force him to his death. It was his own inability to escape his inner demons. His life or death was his choice, not your sin. He paused, his gaze sharpening. Besides, he might not die. I froze. What do you mean? A person who truly wants to die wouldn't make it known to everyone. A hint of cold mockery curled at the corner of Jiyu Yenji's lips. He's more like putting on a show of suffering, acting for you to see, and for the whole world to witness. He wants you to feel guilty, to remember him for the rest of your life. His words struck like a thunderbolt, cleaving through my thoughts shrouded in fear and anger. Indeed. What kind of person is Lin Yang? He is the undefeated general on the battlefield, the Azura who crawled out from piles of corpses. Even if it was an ambush to save Zhao Yu, how could he have so easily reached the brink of death? This feels more like a meticulously orchestrated performance. I understand, I said, taking a deep breath as the confusion in my eyes gradually gave way to clarity. Since you insist on putting on this act, I'll play along to the very end. 31. The next day. In my capacity as princess, I personally visited the Imperial Hospital, selected the finest wound medicines and tonics, and prepared generous gifts in the name of the heir's wife of Dingen Marquis household, sending them grandly to the northern frontier. My public statement was flawless. Third Imperial Sister and General Lin are stationed far at the northern frontier, guarding our borders for the nation, and unfortunately suffered injuries, as their Imperial younger sister. It is only natural for me to be concerned. These modest gifts are but a token of my regard, wishing the General a swift recovery to continue expanding our Great Yeast territories. I carried myself with utmost grace, upholding both the dignity of the imperial family and the magnanimity of the Marquis household. After completing all this, I feigned illness and closed my doors to visitors. Each day, I merely tended to flowers and plants with Jiyu Yenji in the mansion, studying recipes. As if the turmoil in the northern border had nothing more to do with me, my reaction clearly took everyone by surprise. No guilt, no loss of composure, not even the slightest hint of emotion. 32. A month later, news arrived once more from the northern frontier. Lin Yang had survived. He had walked through the gates of hell and back. Though he managed to cling to life, he was left with lingering ailments, never again able to charge into battle as he once had. The once celebrated young general, renowned for his military exploits, had become a frail invalid dependent on medicinal brews to sustain his life. Princess Zhao Yu, the third princess, received verbal commendation from her father for her devoted care of her husband. The people in the capital sighed with emotion, saying that Princess Zhao Yu and General Lin had finally weathered hardships and found happiness, proving true love through adversity. Only I knew the extent of calculation and torment behind this so-called true love. Another 6 months passed, winter gave way to spring, and on a warm afternoon, I successfully gave birth to a baby boy. 33. On the day the child was born, Jiyu Yenji waited anxiously outside the delivery room, as restless as an ant on a hot pan, when he heard the news that both mother and child were safe. This usually composed man actually had reddened eyes and couldn't speak for a long time. The emperor was overjoyed and personally bestowed the name and upon my child, Ji Yuan. May he have a lifetime of peace and smooth sailing. The child's full moon banquet was celebrated with great festivity. Just as the guests were enjoying themselves to the fullest, an unexpected visitor quietly appeared at the back gate of the princess's residence. It was Zhao Yu. She was alone, travel-worn and weary, having somehow managed to sneak back to the capital from the northern border all by herself. She had grown much thinner since her departure, and even the luxurious palace attire couldn't conceal her overwhelming exhaustion and gauntness. That once radiant face now bore only resentment and hatred that ran bone deep. Zhao Shu, led by servants, she walked up to me, her voice hoarse as if scraped by sandpaper. I signaled Jiyu Yenji to remain calm and looked at her serenely. Royal sister, long time no see, long time no see. She burst into a shrill laugh as if hearing the most absurd joke. Zhao Shu, you've been living quite well. With a loving husband and children at your knees. Do you sleep soundly every night? Thanks to you, I sleep very well, I replied indifferently. My calmness completely enraged her. She suddenly took a step forward, staring at me intently. Do you know how I've spent this past year? I've been tending to a useless man, a man who coughs up blood all day but only calls out your name. He hates me, he resents me, he vents all his frustrations on me. I cared for him diligently, yet he accused me of putting on an act. Zhao Shu, this is all your fault, my fault. I finally couldn't help but laugh. Sister, have you forgotten? This marriage was what you yourself desired. The northern frontier was where father commanded you to go. Lin Yang became like this because he couldn't free himself from his inner demons. What does any of this have to do with me? What does it have to do with you? Zhao Yu's eyes flashed with a maddened light. If it weren't for you meddling, if it weren't for you marrying Jiyu Yenji, how could he have gone mad? How could he have become like this? He was supposed to be mine alone. Is that so? I stood up, walked up to her, and lowered my voice to a volume only the two of us could hear. Elder sister, do you really think that without me, you two could have lived happily ever after? Have you forgotten who it was that pushed you into marrying the northern DI barbarians? Who it was that turned a cold shoulder to your so-called true love? Have you forgotten Lin Yang's words? Should I risk treason charges for a woman? A man who didn't dare to stand up for you even once. A man who could only drown his sorrows in alcohol when you were sent away. What makes you think he could ever give you happiness? My words cut like knives, slicing through her last shred of illusion until it bled. Zhao Yu's face turned deathly pale. She staggered backward, her lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. The only reason you think he's unhappy is because of me. You're just using me as an excuse to cover up your own failed choices, I continued, watching her devastated expression. You don't hate me, you hate that coward Lin Yang, and you hate your own helplessness. No, that's not true, she murmured, her gaze unfocused. Elder sister, let's go back. I looked at her, my eyes devoid of hatred, holding only a trace of pity. Go back and guard your husband. Live your own life. Don't disturb me anymore. The bond between us sisters ended completely on that night when you pushed me into the imperial study. With these words, I turned away from her and returned to Jiyu Yenji's side. 34. Jiyu Yenji held my hand and asked softly, did you make everything clear? I nodded. Yes. How Zhao Yu eventually left, I don't know. All I know is, from then on, I never saw her again. It is said that after returning to the north, she fell seriously ill. After recovering, she never caused trouble again. She and Lin Yang were like two soulless puppets, living together in that bitter, frozen land with mutual respect as cold as ice. As for me, amidst Jiyu Yenji's affection and my son's laughter, I gradually erased the nightmares of my past life completely. 35. 3 years later, Jiyu Yenji was on leave at home, accompanying me and Ji Yuan, who was already running around everywhere, to fly a kite in the courtyard. The steward hurried in to report that an imperial decree had arrived from the palace. Lin Yang had passed away from illness. My hand holding the kite string paused slightly. Jiyu Yenji took the string from my hand and said to the butler, understood. Prepare a condolence gift according to custom and send it over. After the butler withdrew, Jiyu Yenji looked at me and asked softly, are you feeling upset? I shook my head, gazing at the kite flying higher and farther in the distance, and murmured, no, I'm not upset, I just feel that he's finally free. He is free now, and so am I, completely free. Before his death, he left me not a single word. Perhaps, during those 3 years of gradual erosion, he finally understood that forcing things is futile, or perhaps, he was simply exhausted. The kite soared high, like a free bird. Ji Yuan clapped his little hands, giggling with delight, his clear laughter echoing in the warm spring sunlight. I gazed at my gentle husband by my side and my adorable son before me, feeling a deep sense of peace in my heart. Lin Yang, in your next life, I granted you and the princess your happiness. As for my present life, thankfully, I've also found my own fulfillment. May the bright moon shine on me alone, rather than on us.